And we are up. This is episode number 28 of the Our Town podcast. And before we get to our guest this week, just want to make a comment. I've added a feature to the recordings, and that is I now have a timeline. So starting with Ethan Woodruff, that I just posted that yesterday on YouTube. It's in the show timeline, and it's called chapters. But then I also took that timeline in narrative form and I put it into Spotify, and you'll see it on Apple or Google or wherever you get the podcast. Going down into the show description, and you'll see the timeline, which will help you navigate to that part of the program if you don't have time for the whole episode. And as always, thank you for your support, for watching, listening, whoever you are. Feel free to make a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff.
100%.
And with that voice you hear, who is he? He's John Joseph IV from Decatur, Morgan County, the Entrepreneurial Center. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
You too. And a beautiful day
Perfect.
in North Alabama.
Perfect.
I just filled up my little fountain outside of our house for you.
Yeah.
It had been shut off for a few days. My wife's out of town.
Appreciate
I said, you know what? I want John to walk into this house and hear some nice, cool running water.
I sure did. Football weather, man. It's the best.
Absolutely. Fall is here. I'm wearing the hat. I'm wearing the Trash Pandas hat because tonight is game 3 of their first playoff series. They lost last night.
It's 2 out of 3, right?
2 out of 3. And what's interesting is typically in professional sports, if you have home field advantage, you'll play the first game or 2 of a series at home, then travel, and then kind of come back.
Yeah.
What they do in minor league is you play away. So they played in Tennessee. They're playing the Smokies, which is in Gatlinburg.
Yeah.
So they played Tuesday night in Tennessee. Wednesday was a travel day.
Game 1 was in Tennessee.
Yep. So
That's
but they only play a 3-game series.
Right.
So if you have home field advantage, then you need to. It would probably not make sense to go play here in the Rocket City, then go to Tennessee, and then come back to the Rocket City.
I get that, but when you earn home field advantage, it's kind of weird that you have to start away, which is sort of an advantage to the away team.
But they won.
They won in Tennessee,
but unfortunately,
they lost game 2.
Then Huntsville. They lost game 2 last night.
Okay.
And it was interesting because we were sitting right on there's no bad seats.
Yeah.
At Toyota Field. There are no bad seats.
True.
And we were in section 4, and I don't know, 4 or 5 rows off the field, and the people were just getting after the first base umpire for bad calls. And unfortunately, he was right on all the calls that people were yelling about. But
That's tough.
But the game ended in the 9th. We were down 4-2. I think his name is Jordan Jackson. He hits a double.
Okay.
Tying run comes to the plate.
Yeah. 2 outs.
2 outs.
Okay.
Teodosio hits a bomb to like right center field. And the guy, it's at the warning track. He has to kind of dive for it.
Yeah.
He falls, he stumbles, and then he gets up, and then the ball like comes out.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, he dropped the ball. Like, well, no, he caught the ball.
Yeah.
And in the 2 seconds it took him to get up, I think he went to throw it to his teammate, kind of like a celebration, like he probably didn't even realize he did it.
Okay.
And just kind of like toss it to his teammate. And then everyone's like, he dropped the ball. And they had like, everyone's going crazy as if the umpire missed that he caught it. Like, no, he caught the ball.
He just flicked it away.
Yeah. You'll see that. You'll sometimes see like a runner ground out, and the shortstop throws to first. The first baseman catches it, and within like less than a second, they just toss it to the umpire. It's the same thing. You caught the ball, and then you get rid of it.
Yeah. But you see that differently in the 9th inning because you so want it to be.
Yeah. So there's no way the Tennessee, the Smokies can complain that it was home field advantage.
Yeah, apparently not. Well, okay, here's a quick question for you.
Yeah.
I know you'll be asking most of the questions here. Isn't the all-time MLB record home runs before Bonds and Sosa, McGuire, was that 61? Is that Maris? Is that the record?
Maris had 61, and Ruth had 60.
So if Judge gets 62, do you think he's the all-time home run single season?
Well, honestly, I can't remember because Sosa had 66. McGuire had
Yeah, they all had 70.
Bonds
had
hit 81.
Yeah.
I can't remember if they were all asterisked out because of steroids.
Well, that's the question. Is
Yeah.
do you see those the same as if Judge hit 62?
The thing that's tough for me about baseball, and this is the same as golf, you're still hitting. I just was watching for some reason clips on Barry Bonds came
Right.
into my YouTube. You're still hitting 102 mile an hour fastball.
True.
But we saw the most notable. You may not know this name. He was a leadoff batter for the Baltimore Orioles, Brady Anderson.
I know Brady Anderson.
He hit 50 homers as a leadoff batter.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And yes, he was steroided up. It's obvious now. You look at the picture, so there must be something to be said about 102 miles an hour. You make a little bit of contact, it's going to go.
Yeah.
But if you're amped up on steroids, well, it's going to go far.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough one. I would say the record should stand at 61, right? And everything else is just
okay.
It was unfortunate. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, if I'm hearing you right, similar. I respect the fact that you still have to get up there and hit 102. Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sosa, all better at baseball than I will ever be.
Yeah.
So
right.
Respect for that. But I think it's too big of a differentiator.
Yeah.
I think if Judge gets 62, that's the record.
Absolutely. And it's also interesting. People may not know this, but so at the minor league level, they try out concepts and potential rule changes that will be implemented in the major leagues.
That makes sense.
So this year, one of them is the base is in the major leagues, it's 15 by 15.
Okay.
It's just, squared.
Yeah.
They're using an 18 by 18 inch base, so it's a little larger, and they say that it's eliminating injuries, potentially like your runner going to first, and the first baseman, and there's like some potential contact that can be made.
Yeah.
And I guess the thought is just increasing the base size will limit the potential that they hit each other.
Interesting.
Just give them a little more margin for error.
Okay.
But the other's the pitch clock that's coming.
Yeah.
They've determined that minor league games are like 26 minutes shorter since implementing that.
Yep.
And then the ball is softer.
What?
They've been experimenting to kind of eliminate, because now you have the compression of a ball, right? So if 102 miles an hour and a certain compression, it's either going to go 450 feet, but if you make it a little softer, it's going to go 420 feet or 415. So the ball has gotten softer, which in theory should make it more. You won't see as many home runs.
That's surprising.
So then it makes the Judge thing even more compelling.
Yeah.
And an athletic feat. That now the variables are changed, but he still hit 62.
The softball thing, I haven't heard of that.
It's a little bit softer.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're like a baseball purist. Like I would not even want to play baseball right now.
Yeah,
if that's because that's not the way I grew up.
Yeah, me neither.
But I have no idea what the baseball compression was like back in Lou Gehrig's days or Babe Ruth's days.
Maybe it helps you if you get hit, but not much. Still coming at you 102.
And one more quick like golf is one of those things where you can bomb it 330 yards, but you still got to get it in the hole. You still got to have a short game and long game and bunker game and all that.
I mean, you take a wedge and you're whatever 100 out.
Yeah.
You get within 2 inches of the cup. There's skill there.
Yeah.
There's skill in hitting a home run. But I think it's also important to remember, I know we got to move on from this.
We don't. It's your episode.
These guys, they're better at hitting than I am.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, there's also a higher probability that they're going to make contact that's significant. So once you adjust for that, that again makes me think that, it's not like a bunch of novices took steroids and hit 70 home runs.
Yeah.
These were already some of the best in the world.
Right. But it is interesting that in the steroid era, well, you had three major leaguers all not just eclipse the record of 61, but like crush it.
Yes.
Well, now you have someone. The rest of the league is not even near that, right? I think they might be in the high 30s,
20 behind or something.
Like he has just distanced himself.
Yeah.
It's like a distance runner, right? A marathoner running against people who don't run marathons, just lapping them.
Yep.
And that's interesting, which then tells you it is just him, and it's not affected. Not everybody else has this, some sort of unfair competitive advantage.
Right. But I have to say, in the same breath, man, I loved it when McGwire and Sosa were going back and forth. Yeah. Still, you can't take away everything they did.
Yeah.
I think they should get consideration for the Hall. I think that's a different question. Maybe you reduce their statistics by 20% for some period of time, see where they stack up, and then make your decision. But
Yeah.
just to say no, that's tough.
Yeah, and we don't need to dive into it much more because I don't have any findings, but I'm sure they're not the only ones that were culpable in that, right? You have a
Right.
training staff, you have others that were involved or complicit, right?
That's the part I don't know, but I see your point.
By the way, this is a new. I like to try wear a new T-shirt.
Yeah.
I have an Alabama shirt,
It's good.
and I want to transition to. I wore this on purpose because John Joseph IV is here from Morgan County, Decatur. So if you could talk a little bit about the Entrepreneurial Center.
Yeah.
And then I want to dive into a topic as to why I wore this shirt and why I'm referencing North Alabama, and we'll go from there. But talk a little bit about the Entrepreneurial Center.
Cool. Well, I think we call it the East Center for short.
Okay.
And I think that the story of the East Center is the story of Decatur and Morgan County, which is a place that is full of entrepreneurs, full of makers, full of creative people. It's a story that I think we're going to tell more and more and more. It's a place where any person, whether they're a client of ours or not, can come talk about an idea. If they are a client, we're going to give them the space, the coaching, counseling, mentoring, education, partnerships, financing, the different resources that are necessary to grow a business and to give you the best chance to get out of those first brutal 3 to 5 years. And I'd say if you're out there and you're in those first 3 to 5 years, you feel like alone because it's brutal. You just need to know that's how it is for everyone.
Right.
You're trying to create something in the world that's not there.
Right.
It's hard. Creation of anything in general is difficult. So we want to be the one place in the world that makes life a little easier for entrepreneurs, knowing they're already doing what I think is the hardest thing there is to do. Point of pride, we're going to announce that this is our first announcement of it. So
Okay.
We found out that for 2022, and this might be surprising, our incubator ranks number 1 in the state on the 2 main metrics that incubators get measured on. That's the number of clients incubated and the number of clients graduated.
Wow.
And so,
Congrats.
thank you. Well, that's a testament to the community, and it really is, because they're starting the businesses.
Right.
I think that the work of Larry Way, who was the founder, a founding and executive director, along with a founding board, the work he did along with the team there over the years to just pour into businesses, be honest with businesses, that has really sustained us. And then the 5 years since I started, that's been something that we've just aspired to build off of. And it's a responsibility that all of us take very seriously.
Okay.
And last thing I'd say is we get into things that incubators don't do in the industry. We're recruiting young people. We started the first program in the state in partnership with UAH, where a high school student can meet 40 business owners, go to 40 businesses, start an actual business, both as a class and as an individual, graduate at 18 with that experience, and get course credit for it.
That's amazing.
Tech transfer partnerships with NASA down the line. So there's a lot that we're doing, but that's because, our mission is to be the best incubator in the world.
So the accolade you just received, how many are in incubation right now?
We have 53 companies today.
And how many graduated?
79 total over the course of the years. Okay. And I mean, that's the reason that's such a big deal, is because it's an incubator. There's a temptation not to graduate, to let people stay. But when it's the right time, when it's the appropriate time, they need to be in the community, benefiting the community. That space needs to be opened up for someone else who's starting their business, working to pursue their dream.
So just as a note on the screen, we're cycling through some photos. Some I took from, Facebook, whether that came from the East Center or your personal page, but try what we can to promote our guest. So I hope viewers will enjoy that. And some of those are functions and events. So as people watch it, they'll be like, wait a minute, that's me,
Well, that's the thing. The East Center needs to be a platform to tell other people's stories.
Right.
The entrepreneurs are the hero of the story.
Yeah.
those of us in the team, we're fortunate, we're blessed to be stewards.
Yeah.
But the entrepreneurs are the heroes of the story.
That's a good point, because even as a podcast, I get, and just in the interview process, I'm going to be encouraged, inspired by what you tell me today, and other guests are, and that's why people tune in. They want to be inspired, or have some story that they hear a story that kind of matches their situation in life, and you need that kind of that fuel, right? Like
Absolutely,
a little bit every
you do.
day, and same thing with a business owner. It's tough. You're gonna have some really great moments, and there's gonna be some really tough moments.
100%.
And you need to constantly reach out and talk, and then hear someone who you think, oh, this person hasn't made, and then you find out, actually, I had 12 businesses fail, and
That's
it wasn't
right.
until the 13th that
That's exactly right.
partially succeeded.
And, one thing that really hit me, first time I heard it, I don't remember where I heard it, but someone said to me, energy is a finite resource. Either I heard someone, I read it, someone said, I don't remember how I came across it, but that really hit me. I mean, you need your energy replenished.
Yeah.
You need encouragement. You need hope that this makes some kind of sense to be doing. And you do. You talk to the people who have, quote unquote, made it. They've all got scars.
Yeah.
And, the other thing I'd say to people who are thinking about entrepreneurship out there is, there's this idea that, I guess you're born as a baby and you've got an E on your forehead or something. Entrepreneurship can be learned. There are principles, there are rules, there are do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
So it concerns me when I hear people having a mindset that they're, quote, not an entrepreneur. I think we're all built to create something and to contribute something unique, because I think people are unique.
Yeah, there's going to be, I don't know how many categories, and if you've ever thought about it, of entrepreneurs, but two right off the top of the head are, you got one that it doesn't matter what the product or service is. That's just what they do.
Yeah.
I'm going to work for myself. I'm not going to work for anybody else. And just that element of creativity and being in business for themselves drives them. Then there's people kind of like me, where it's not till you kind of find something you're really passionate about, then you say, okay, well, maybe that I'll pursue.
Sure.
A route, but I'm not necessarily wired where that's all I think about is just what else can I do from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be a lot of reasons that or other things that factor into that, but I don't know if you've read any books, or have you ever thought about, are there different categories of entrepreneurship?
The main way it tends to be broken down, first you have startup people. They got to start it. Like whatever it is, they have to be the one who started it.
Right.
You have people who want to buy something and grow it. They're not a starter. You have social entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So they're out in the community. They're innovating. They're trying new things. You have, what are they called? Intrapreneurs. So people inside of traditional organizations who are working to innovate, who are working to create. And so I think the common thread there is that entrepreneurship is not a discipline so much as it's a mindset.
Gotcha.
You can be entrepreneurial in your marriage.
Right.
You can be entrepreneurial in your parenting, in your friendships, in anything, in your prayer life, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to be entrepreneurial. It's a mindset, and that mindset gets reflected in things that we call startups, so on and so forth.
That's true, because it doesn't matter if it's a for-profit or not-for-profit.
Absolutely.
If the effort is not being applied by an individual or a group of individuals, then it ceases.
Yes.
So then, therefore, everybody is doing something in an entrepreneurial manner to keep that going.
Yes, that's right. And if I could tell entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs one thing, when I meet people who would describe themselves as entrepreneurs, the people who aren't really all in, they're not committed, they're not actually interested in building something that's going to really grow. They feel good most of the time. Mm-hmm. They look like they feel good most of the time. The people who are building, the people who are creating, they feel beaten up a lot of the time. They feel tired a lot of the time. They feel worn out a lot of the times. They feel exhausted from questioning whether they should continue. They feel tired from shadow boxing. They feel tired from navigating chaos. And yet those are the people who are building things that have the chance to be truly impactful, truly significant, truly big. And if you think about it, if you really stop and pull back, isn't that how it sort of works in life? Like most of the time when you're doing something that can be truly good for you or for others, it often doesn't feel good in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been working on losing some weight.
Yeah.
I don't ever feel great in the process of losing weight ever.
Right.
Ever. I'm not going to dress it up like, I'm so glad I'm doing this. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I'm really not. It's made me more grateful. It's created some other mindsets to help me. But I'm not going to act like, oh, it's been so pleasant, so fun. It's not.
Yeah.
It is better. If you go run a marathon, now I know there's people out there who love to run, but in general, whether you love to run or not, you're exhausted, but you're probably better off for having run the 26.3 or whatever it is. But you don't look like it. You might get dragged over the finish line, but you're actually about to be the strongest you've ever been, but you had to be broken down to be built up.
Yeah. You made me think of something that's somewhat of a tangential topic, but I think it kind of plays in when I get a little frustrated when people complain at the amount of money, let's just say a CEO makes.
Okay.
Now, as a founder, though, let's just talk, and that is probably the case. However, when it's a founder of a company who has mortgaged their home,
yes,
mortgaged their future,
yeah,
put their current life style at risk,
yes,
whether that's extravagant or not, or modest, to pursue a passion, they lay down on that pillow every night with fears and anxiety. They probably don't sleep well.
correct.
And then there's those that will want to take something from or an expectation. Well, you're a CEO, you should make less money, or you owe me something. Where really, if you understood the backstory, right, I would hope you would appreciate, no, that person probably deserves everything they get, because they're also probably the type of person that's going to, share the wealth with their employees. But boy, their effort, the compensation should be commensurate with the effort they put in and the amount of risk they've put in.
Yeah, I think like so many things in our public discourse, the truth, in my opinion, is sort of in the middle.
Yeah.
Like on one extreme, you do have people who start things, and I think where a lot of people are coming from is that they feel like they're not at all proportionately sharing in the success of something that they've also worked hard to build. Mm-hmm. And I get that. I mean, if you feel like, you're just holding down everyone's wages or benefits just so you can cash an extra whatever in your check, and it's disproportionate to the industry, it's disproportionate to your competitors. Sure. I understand where people who are working, trying to provide a family, are coming from. And I don't think you automatically discount that. On the other hand, to your point, if you destroy the ability to have upside, when you take the risk and the stress and the financial strain, not to mention the talent it takes, the devotion, the all-consuming dedication that's going to wake you up at 2:14 in the morning, paying self-employment taxes, you're legally responsible for everything. You're financially responsible for everything. You're the last one to get paid, which is the truth for a lot of entrepreneurs. Yeah. If you take on all of that without any prospect of upside, why would you just not have a job? If you think you can make them the same amount of money for less risk and for less exertion and less stress, naturally, most people are going to pick that. So I think that when there's an honest company that provides an honest service and creates honest profits, the people are compensated and taken care of. We should celebrate that someone who took on a lot more risk and a lot more everything than we did got a disproportionate reward. I think that comes with a responsibility, but I think that is the key. And you say, well, who cares? Well, who cares is if people stop starting businesses, there goes your engine of primary job creation in this country. Yep. And all these businesses that we see that are so big or they're quote corporate or whatever, they were by definition startups in 99.9% of the cases.
Yeah.
Now, there's a separate conversation of how do we make sure that every person has an opportunity, has the resources they need, the know-how, the access to capital. How do we make sure that every person has the opportunity to pursue entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
That's a different question. We should. This is America. Everyone should have that opportunity. And we need to work hard to make sure that that's happening. But if you're going to tell me that you want me to take on an excessive amount of downside everything, risk, stress, hours put in for no additional upside, no one is going to make that decision.
Yeah.
So I think it's an important point, and it's yet another issue where we'd all do well to realize that a lot of people are making valid points, and if our goal is to progress in a way that's viable, we probably end up taking a little bit from both of those extremes.
Yeah. Well said. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for bringing it up.
All right. I want to talk about, okay, I'm wearing my Alabama shirt.
Yeah.
We are in North Alabama.
Yes, sir.
We are in the 256 area code.
256.
Currently, we're in Limestone County, where I live, right off County Line Road. About 100 feet that way, maybe not 100 feet, a little more. 200 feet is Madison County. I think I read something in your LinkedIn profile or something you sent me that Decatur is considered a part of the greater Birmingham area, the way it was worded. Is that accurate?
Let's see here. So there's Decatur, which is in Morgan County.
Right.
And then it has its own MSA. The part that is not directly related is that there has been a part of Limestone County,
okay,
which has been annexed into Decatur.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about the Birmingham
It
connection.
surprised me, and I guess I'll try to pull it up as we go, and maybe I'll reference it later. But somewhere it said something as it related to Decatur. It was part of the greater Birmingham metropolitan area.
Well, sometimes they define these, metropolitan statistical areas.
Okay.
Small. Sometimes they divide, or define them in larger ways. So
right.
You may have like a north central MSA. I don't know.
So I want to tie together. I've kind of touched on this a little bit in prior episodes, but I think you're the right person to explore this with. And let me just step back. So when I started the Our Town podcast, in my logo, and I've mentioned this a few times, it said Huntsville, Alabama. Now, part of the reason I did that was I had only been here a month. I had this idea, and I live in Madison. But it's, to me, being from the D.C. area, no one lives in D.C. They live in Virginia or they live in Maryland, maybe even West Virginia now.
Yep.
Kind of in that, the blast radius is 50 miles, right? That's what's considered WMA, Washington Metropolitan Area. But so I'm still learning, well, what is the greater Huntsville area? What does that mean? Now, but as the podcast has gotten more popular, in my mind, the Our Town is like the whole state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. And it might even grow beyond that later because there's the Tennessee Valley and we have, we talked about the Tarcog. Well, we also, the Singing River Trail goes all the way through the Tarcog, but then Lauderdale County is in a different cog. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me just step back now and make my point. It's very interesting how tribal we are as people. And so let's just, at the very highest macro level example I can think of like the Olympics. We watch the Olympics, and no matter which state you're from, it's all about USA. I remember the 1984 Olympics. You go into a McDonald's, and they had, and it wasn't digital, it was on paper, but they had updates every day on the medal count and how we were doing compared to the other countries. And that's kind of continued on, the medal count thing. But USA all the way, right? We're all wearing that USA hat. Okay, now let's say we have something domestic. Let's say there's some sort of competition or something that divides the west part of the U.S. from the east, everything east of the Mississippi. Well, now all of a sudden, we're very pro-East U.S., right? Alabama would fit into that as far as the Mississippi River. And, we're going to have different feelings towards those in the West.
Okay.
Now, let's say it's in Alabama, okay? And it's north and south. That's different, right? Over in North Alabama now, it's on. Whatever this thing is, now we have different feelings towards those in South Alabama.
Right.
Even though up until this point we were cool because we were all USA all the way for the Olympics. West versus East and whatever that thing was.
Yep.
But now it's different. Well, now let's say we get into counties. Oh, Madison County versus Morgan County versus Lauderdale County, you name it. Then you might even get into let's go down to like the HOA.
Yep.
I'm in this HOA and 50 yards over there, a different neighborhood, different HOA.
That's not us.
But it's like what is that about us where there's like millions of hats we're putting on as far as kind of who we're rooting for, who we have strong feelings against or for. Mm-hmm. And we're very hypocritical that way where, you know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, just yesterday we were all on the same page because we were in the same high school district. Now we're against each other because there's something else where the parameters changed and the situation changed and now we're enemies, where we were aligned before. So I say that because, and I want you to shed some light on, I need some help on understanding what really are the boundaries of North Alabama. But do you feel in any way, I'm just kind of the outsider here, is there competition? And if it's competition, is it healthy or unhealthy between Decatur, mm-hmm. Athens, Huntsville? Do you mind in Madison or whatever it may be, or Birmingham? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so that's very tough. The first thing I would say is, if we're being honest, everyone has a desire to be accepted. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a desire to be part of something. That's just how we're built. And so that doesn't mean that it's just the one thing, right?
Yeah.
You might be rooting for the USA in the Olympics, right? Mm-hmm. But if the U.S. team is taking on your favorite college football team, I know that doesn't happen, but you know what? You have a closer connection.
Sure.
You may have a closer connection to your state college football team.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you don't love the USA, but it means that you grew up going to watch that team play, not all those people playing on the U.S. team. Mm-hmm. So there's that. As far as the relationship between the counties, I actually look forward to it moving more in the direction you're describing. I think that some of our biggest opportunities, like the Singing River Trail, are in finding ways to act together. Okay, some of our best economic opportunities, to me, when you look at Huntsville, mm-hmm. and this is one of the places that the federal government has designated for a significant amount of federal investment.
Yeah,
and Huntsville does a fantastic job being a steward of that. To me, when you look at the nature of national security today, when you look at the nature of warfare, when you look at what's happening globally, I think we should all take pride in the fact that people from all over Alabama are coming to Huntsville, and they're doing some very effective work to serve our country.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think that there is mutual advantage for Huntsville in having people who can come from all over and support that mission and be the workforce that is necessary, because you can't just plug anyone into a lot of these jobs.
Yeah.
Right? On the other hand, I think there is advantage for the surrounding communities to be able to send people here, earn a good living, return to their community, live there, and contribute.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's one of those situations where, is there some competition? Well, sure, because everyone wants to be the best that they can be. But there can be competition, and I think competition and trying to work hard to improve yourself, like Decatur, Morgan County, I would say we're in competition with ourselves mm-hmm. to be the best Decatur, Morgan County that we can be.
Right.
We're not trying to be Huntsville. We're a different place. It's a different everything. Mm-hmm. Not better, different.
Right.
Right? So I think it's important that, we all be in competition with ourselves, and we all be looking for ways that we can work and win together. But the other thing that I think is important as a region is every county has the responsibility to pull its own weight, mm-hmm. not to expect any other place to help improve it. Mm-hmm. These counties have people who are more than capable of making Jackson, Colbert, Morgan, Marshall, Lawrence, Limestone, Madison, great counties. So in one sense, competition is good because it makes sure that we're all doing what we have to do to pull our own weight, to improve and to be better. But that process makes us a stronger region overall.
Yeah.
And that becomes something that ultimately benefits everyone in very practical ways.
It is nice having that, and you're spot on, and you're right. And I have a couple comments, but I think what I've observed is people really are excited about the region.
Yeah.
You know, the North Alabama and everything that's coming, and maybe even, have you heard the term Coopetition?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of that, right? Where you kind of want to, you want to be better than you were. You want to be pushing and to go forward. It goes back to our entrepreneurial thing before, right? If you're building a region or you're building a county, it's by nature, you're going to keep expanding and getting better. And what can we do to attract people here? And the great thing about all of North Alabama is that those who are from here are very welcoming. I look at just the composite of Launch 2035. There's several people who have come from elsewhere and brought their skills and experience to North Alabama, now serving on different committees that are having tremendous impact on the economic, growth and development and just ideas. You were one of those. And I always, because there's going to be areas of the country where that's probably not going to happen or not going to be realized. But, and anybody who complains or kind of makes those observations, like, oh, well, those are probably the people that don't get it, right, and don't get the vision that you were just articulating.
Well, I think part of what I hear you say, too, is this can be both and.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm for the region. This is where we live. This is our home, and this is our state. Love this state.
Yeah.
From this state, was gone for a long time, willingly and voluntarily chose to come back. Glad we did, period. I can't think of a place in our country, and there's a lot of places in our country that are amazing. I lived out in the Rockies, right, outside of Denver, going to the Hershey Park in Pennsylvania, whatever, California, San Diego, the beaches out there. I mean, it's an amazing country we live in.
Yeah.
But when you think about the quality of life, the quality of opportunity, I just don't know why you'd want to be anywhere except North Alabama. So when I think region, it's funny because if you're being honest, you're thinking on two tracks. Like, number one is, how can we win together as a region? Let's look for ways like the trail where everyone really wins. At the same time, you still have a responsibility to look after home. It's not anyone else's responsibility to look after your home. So when I look for partnerships, I'm for the big picture. I'm for win-win. But I'm not going to do it without being able to also say how it benefits the people of Decatur, Morgan County.
Of course, yeah.
That's home.
Yeah.
Home matters.
Now, that's a great transition. Let's kind of go back then to the beginning. Where were you born? Were you in Decatur?
I was born in Decatur.
Okay, and obviously you have a name that begs the follow-up questions of, this is your great-grandfather that was John Joseph.
Yes.
How much do you know about him?
Entrepreneur. He sold groceries in different ways. So there was always some version of groceries, whether it was a backpack on your back, walking along country roads, selling to farms, which some of my ancestors did, to opening a mom and pop grocery store that I grew up in. Which
and that was Joseph's grocery store.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Which my grandfather opened, and I largely spent my childhood in.
Okay, so your grandfather opened it, and it was inspired then by his father.
Yes.
Okay.
I think just trade in general had been in our blood. And even on the other side of our family, my mom's side, my grandfather there opened the first shopping center in Decatur, Alabama.
Okay.
So, I've been to these places and lived in D.C., like I said, all those things. Those are great. Love them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take our kids by that shopping center and say, hey, your great-grandfather and grandmother started this.
Yeah.
And you need to know that's what you're a part of. You need to know you're a part of something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And see beyond what is immediately in front of you.
So as a kid, let's talk a little bit. I know at 8 years old, you've commented that's kind of when you were working in the grocery store and the family business, and you're stocking shelves and things like that. But before that time, when you were even smaller than that, we're going back to kind of your first memories. But what was your early childhood like? Was it still heavily involved by the grocery store, or?
The earliest I can remember really was because I would go to school and then come to the store and then work.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be homework. It might be stocking shelves. I think I mentioned this where, making change, delivery, so on and so forth. And so it's just so bound up with my childhood because I wasn't just necessarily going home, working for an hour, playing wiffle ball. Did that sometimes.
Right.
Played football, all those different things. But I largely grew up in a grocery store.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
All right. So you're at Joseph's grocery store with your family. Was all of your extended family employed?
A lot of them. So I had at one point three uncles and my dad who worked there. One uncle, Toby, left, I want to say mid 80s, has just become very, very successful at real estate.
Okay.
My dad stayed there at the store until he passed away. And that was after my grandfather passed away. And then the other two uncles we've lost.
Gotcha.
So I was surrounded by a lot of family, and really the people who hung out at the store were sort of an extended family, and they all had the right to raise me, punish me, discipline me, tell me what to go do. It was just how it was.
Yeah.
But that was also an introduction to living in community. And I just think we need community in the same way I think that work can be a good thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
What do we need fundamentally? What's at the foundation? And obviously there's a spiritual conversation there as well. Mm-hmm. But I just mean in terms of the things you do in life. Seems like working hard, knowing why that matters, ends better.
Yeah.
Seems like living in community with other people, having people who you love and who love you, because it's not just about receiving, that ends better.
Yeah. Yeah, I have found in my own life, I practice this, but it's all about serving others, and I'm happier when it's kind of that's top of mind. Yeah. What can we do to help someone, or versus just being so inclusive and reclusive as well, and just not reaching out, not being a part of the community or society, where you almost step back and say, well, what are you doing? Right? We need to be about helping one another.
Well, and I think, sometimes it's messy, right? Sometimes you get hurt. Yeah. Sometimes you get disappointed. Sure. Sometimes you get let down. But I think that's better than not playing.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I've found, when I see people who tend to be other focused, they get what they need and they enjoy everything more.
Yeah.
But there's a point where when we become too inwardly focused, you may be not getting the things you actually need, and you're enjoying it less. And not that it's always fundamentally about you. I mean, I'm the same way. I like to be useful. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say that's a motivating factor for me.
Yeah.
And it's also a recognition, when you talk about pouring into other people, there's that aspect of it. But there's also the recognition that a lot of people have poured into us. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have invested into us. A lot of people have given time to us. So when we meet people who that hasn't been the case for, it's not actually so noble of me to try to pour into that person. It's sort of what I should do.
Yeah.
Just by rights.
Do you have other siblings?
I have a younger brother.
Okay, so they weren't going to take any chances to not name you John Joseph IV.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Your
Charles.
Brother? Charles. I've not met too many people that have the fourth. Do you like that?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
It's unique.
Yeah, I really do. For a long time, people would, what's your name? I'd say John Joseph. And when my dad was alive, I'd say the fourth. and I appreciate that because he's saying on the one hand, you're part of something.
Yeah.
There's a responsibility there. On the other hand, you're a different person,
Sure.
you know?
There is that distinction.
Yeah. And just, I was given a lot,
Yeah.
a lot of advantages a lot of people don't have. I mean, that's also a responsibility.
Right. All right. So let's fast forward a little bit. In high school, I think actually let's give a shout out because we'll just let the audience know we had to do. I had to abort the first recording because I had a little technical difficulty I wasn't expecting. But we want to give a shout out to Dr. Charles Little. Is it Charles?
Oh, Larry.
Larry Little. Sorry, Crossing the Line is his podcast, and on LinkedIn you'll see a post where John Joseph IV here comments on that, which was shot back in June. But Dr. Little does a great job in interviewing you and going through. So I don't want to repeat things because people should go and check that out and give him a listen and a follow. But the one thing I did want to touch on was when you made that comment of that you had some difficult transitions from like 5th grade to 6th grade, or a freshman in high school and a freshman in college.
Yeah.
Where you were the year before seemingly not necessarily on top of the world, but feeling really good about yourself. And all of a sudden circumstances changed such that you felt alone.
Yep.
And struggled. Can you talk through that a little bit more? Is there anything that you didn't share with Dr. Little that in thinking about maybe your answer that you would want to kind of expound on?
Well, I think the thing I didn't circle back on there was that I considered ultimately a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So the backstory is 5th grade-ish, those years felt like I didn't have many, if any, friends. New high school, freshman year, same thing. Just, I don't know, I felt alone.
Mm-hmm.
Then freshman year of college, new college, different state, very similar, just felt alone. 8th grade, felt like I had a lot of good friends and we had sort of always clicked. And then somehow I ended up being the student body president my senior year of high school and senior year of college. So that changes things for you by virtue of that position.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the things it taught me are, and that's not why I wanted to be involved in all of that. Again, I just enjoyed being useful, and that was a vehicle to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show up to either of these places playing to run for some office. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought about transferring my sophomore year of college after my mom died. I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
But I think, number one, it's what I had to go through to learn not to make achievement the basis of friendship. So I thought, if you achieve things, you get accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll achieve. That's what I thought in my teens and my 20s. And I realized that's not real relationship. Real relationship is, I love you if you're up. I love you if you're down.
Yep.
I'll encourage you when you win. I'll be there for you when you lose. And sometimes I'll tell you things that you need to hear that no one else will tell you. That's real relationship. So the thing I learned is achievement in this world can kind of change your posture relative to certain people.
Mm-hmm.
But what's important is to make sure that you treat people well and with respect, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they've achieved, regardless of what they have. Treat them with respect. Treat them the way you'd want to be treated.
Yeah.
So it's taken a long time for me to detach achievement from my own self-esteem or from my own sense of being accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it was a gift too, because it also gave me some empathy, both for there's two groups that if I'm lumping people in, there's the people who are excluded. And I've got friends in that group who don't feel like part of the inside of whatever it is, right? And you realize like those are good people. They have a lot to add. They can be good friends. They're just not in whatever circle or they're not in the room. Then there's the people you think on LinkedIn have it all.
Yeah.
Guess what? They've got problems too.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, the things that they have achieved or the things they have gotten have an isolating effect on them. And they need good friends too. They need people who can just shoot straight with them.
Yeah.
So it was really jarring and disorienting to go through that. And it was just so clockwork, fifth and eighth, freshman, senior, you know. But as hard as it was, I feel like God has used those things in my life to teach me things, not because I'm such a great guy. I just had the benefit of those experiences.
Who did you turn to the most
When?
during all of those? Was it your mother didn't pass till you were 19?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So was she one as a sounding board or a comfort for you?
I think my parents were, but I had a hard time articulating what was going on because I was just young. And I think that I actually retreated inward. Okay. And so I understand, when a lot of people like to give social commentary on, you can't be in your house all the time. You can't be alone all the time, so on and so forth. I get that. And they're right. But people get hurt too.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to stick your hand in, the honeycomb or the beehive and get stung 48 times and pull it out and get better and then put your hand in again. Maybe there's honey in there, but you might get stung 48 more times. So I think for a long time, I just had to struggle with it.
Yeah.
But at each of those stages, I was also fortunate to end up with friends who I knew, come what may, those are some good friends, and I don't forget them.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And it's as you get older, you kind of lose a certain number of friends, but the ones that you do have, those are those that rose to the top that are there for you no matter what.
That's true.
Right. But can you talk about your mother a little bit? What kind of influence was she in your life?
Yeah. My mom, people loved my mom. They loved her. She was magnetic. People still tell me stories about her in 2022. She was kind. There was a lot about her I didn't get to know until later in life.
Yeah.
And it's like people would tell me these stories, and she sent me a letter my years of college. I guess it would have been my freshman year because I lost her sophomore year. And I read this letter. I'm like, so this helped me connect all these things people have told me about my mom to what I sort of experienced but didn't know. And I was so excited to get that letter because I was just looking forward to being able to get to know her more. Now I'm 19.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have a little more context. You're starting to get to know your parents in a different way. And I was just looking forward to that.
And part of that is her own humility, right? She wasn't going to boast about herself. So how would you know unless other people told you?
Yeah, she didn't do that.
Right.
And, I told Larry, but that was close to the time. I have trouble remembering specific moments relative to other specific moments. I don't know why that is, but my point is it was close to the time that I go home and, she's not feeling well or just stomach hurt. And so she's going back to the doctor. I went back to Oxford, and then I get a phone call. You need to come home. And the next thing I know, it's stage 4, and then it's months to live. And then I move home, and then probably 4 weeks later, February 11th, she passes away. It all just happened so fast.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
Yeah.
There's just no sugarcoating it.
Right.
It was hard.
So you were 19, you were a sophomore at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And can we step back a little bit and talk about the other schools you applied to? And, you're from Alabama, you're from Decatur.
Yep.
You ultimately become the student body president at Ole Miss, but how did you get to Mississippi?
Yeah. So initially they had offered me a scholarship.
Okay.
And it was a really good scholarship. And so that was a key decision or a key point in it. At that time, I had no other real ties to Oxford. I might have known literally 2 people.
Is this the Truman Scholarship? Or is that
so
different?
That was later.
Okay.
So the Truman there's the Truman Scholarship, the Rhodes Scholarship, and the Marshall, which are sort of your 3 national scholarships. Okay. The Goldwater a little bit. So my junior year of college, I won one of the Trumans. They give out
Okay.
like 50 a year all over the country.
Nice.
And so I was fortunate to get a Truman Scholarship.
Select group.
It was an amazing group of people.
Yeah.
Prior to going to college, I had just been offered the academic scholarship that, you know, a high school senior may or may not get. And I'd been offered one at Tulane, which I thought about, and Birmingham Southern. And after freshman year at Ole Miss, I made a hard push at going back to Birmingham Southern. And looking back on it, of course, I'm glad that it didn't work out. I mean, especially my last 2 years at Oxford were just unbelievable, just really good years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when I came back after my mom died, but I tried to get to Birmingham Southern. We had everything worked out for me to go. There was enough of a scholarship too that it made sense. And then like the person who was my point of contact there, right when this was all getting ready to go, I think he took another job. And so, you know, the way I process things, my reaction was, God, why'd you let all that happen? If now I can't pursue this. So I went back to Oxford, and those last 2 years were just such a joy, just a joyful, not a perfect 2 years, but I'm saying they were good years.
Was there a period of time, though, when you went back, and in that first of those 2 years, where you had to kind of have a period of acceptance, though?
With mom?
No, well, just going back. You're saying at first you didn't want to. You go back, and then, of course, in retrospect, like, man, I'm glad it worked out. But how long was it? Was it days or weeks or months where you're like, all right, I'm all in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it took me about a semester because I was also still trying to get used to life continued to move.
Yeah.
I continued to have homework. I continued to have responsibilities. And except my mom is no longer there.
Yeah.
And I would say it took about a semester to just settle into some kind of a routine where I accepted I'm all in here and my mom's not back home. When I drive on I think it was 278 through Hamilton and Double Springs that I would take back home when I drove home. 278, one of those roads.
How was Oxford?
When I look back on it, I think the main thing I take away is if you want to go to college and you're someone who's interested in pursuing opportunities, they are so good about connecting you to opportunities. At the same time, I had opportunities that are just so rare I didn't know. So you say, what was it like, right? Okay, so I had I struggled forming close relationships. People would offer that. I struggled engaging, but I had a couple of buddies who were really solid, you know, one of whom especially is like a brother to me today. There were just wonderful girls there.
Yeah.
Too, you know, and you learn a lot just interacting, just hanging out, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I just regret that I was so focused on the work and the do this and the do that. I also missed a lot of that. But I was fortunate to be able to sit in the, you know, outside the student union and just have a good time with people and different types of people from all over. You know, it might be from the Delta, it might be from India. You know, that was pretty amazing. In the classroom, I was fortunate to have mentors and teachers who loved what they did, who loved me enough to push me. You know, I think I had to go through about 70 drafts of my Truman application personal statement. And there's a gentleman named John Sammons. There was another, Miss Deborah, other people who they kept pouring into me to get the best out of me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why I have a real problem with me saying, no, everything you're doing is great. That doesn't cost me anything. And it doesn't put me at risk because you're going to like me for saying that. As opposed to saying to you, hey, these things are really good, but privately and respectfully, I'm going to say to you, these things need to work on. If I'm truly interested in what's best for you, I'm going to invest in you and I'm going to pour into you and tell you what I think you need to hear in a loving, respectful, probably private way.
Yeah.
That's a very sacrificial thing. And that was done for me. The first draft of my Truman Scholarship would not have cut it.
Yeah.
We had to get through 70 or so of them to do it. So I had these people pouring into me. I had the chance to work pretty regularly with the president, which we called the chancellor of our university.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was Robert Kayat. I mean, I love that man. We've stayed in touch. We met up for hamburgers a few years ago in the middle of Mississippi and Alabama. So I've told you it was hard in many respects, right?
Sure.
I'm not trying to describe the picture perfect college experience, but then even experientially, the president, I think another former student body president at the time was the director at Monticello.
Really?
So they sent me to Monticello for like 4 days, and I just got to go tour Monticello with him.
Wow.
And just stay on the grounds. All these people came to campus. Henry Kissinger, people on all different sides of the debates came, and I was fortunate to be able to show them around the campus or talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Barksdale, who founded Netscape Navigator, the honors colleges, we're riding around in a van. Some cabinet person's asking me college football questions. And I've really had a just unique college experience. And I mean, it was hard, and there are things I lament losing my mom. I lament being too focused on just work. And I wish that I had kind of eased up on the throttle a little bit and taken advantage of some of those other opportunities in college.
Yeah.
But man, I can't, I was so blessed in so many respects there.
How many hours away is Oxford, Mississippi? Ole Miss.
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
And you were there before Eli Manning, right?
Yeah. I think he's just, I was there 96 to 2000.
Right.
So it seems like he was close to that, but I can't remember.
I'll tell you, just quickly on the Mannings, like Archie went to Ole Miss, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen his biography, but whatever you think you know about the Mannings, that will blow you away.
I have not. I'm not very familiar.
Oh my gosh! I'll just his dad committed suicide while he was in college, and he was a All-American quarterback and had to deal with that and overcome that. And actually, he became All-American after that.
Wow.
He was one of those who just channeled it and just played a different level of football after that. But you have no idea, right? You look at the Manning family, kind of like the royal family of football and of the South, and we love them. And Arch is now going to Texas, and Cooper and Peyton are doing a game show together.
Yep.
But I was blown away.
See, and
you just never know what
looks
people have been
perfect,
through.
but everyone goes through things.
I highly recommend that documentary.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So let's now go into, you end up getting a law degree.
Yeah.
True. Okay. So after Ole Miss, then what happens?
So through the Truman, I got to go to D.C. for a little while. And after 4 years of student government and some time in D.C., I mean, I loved it. It was a good experience, but it's not all I wanted to ever do.
Yeah.
And I literally had I got to go west itch. I mean, it sounds so cliche. I didn't think that was a real thing. I thought it was a metaphor or something. I wanted to go west.
Pan for gold.
Yeah. So I ended up in Colorado. I got a fellowship or whatever they call it at
Eagle Rock.
a school. Yeah, Eagle Rock.
Hold on, I'm gonna switch over to the internet because I actually have that prepared.
Yeah.
There it is. You can look on your right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's the lodge.
Eagle Rock School and Professional Development Center.
Yep. So you got teachers coming through there. You've got students from all over the country, and it's a high school. It's an accredited high school, but like it says, it's also providing professional development. It's also giving teachers an opportunity to meet each other, and we try new things there, sort of a lab. And what was interesting about that place, I remember driving in. I think it was raining that night, and it's right in the Rockies.
Oh yeah, let me pull up the map. Actually, I've got that right.
Yeah, I mean it's right there in the Rockies. And I'm driving in from Alabama. I come across Kansas.
Yeah.
You know, I've got my guitar and stuff, and I'm not a great guitar player. I wish I were.
So that's I-80 you were taking, or 70? Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember. I remember 75 into Cheyenne, Denver.
Okay.
And then 36 to Boulder.
There you go.
That's a great road, man.
Is it?
Oh, you can just pull over and climb a rock, and there's the water. I love 36. But anyways, I remember getting there, not filled with guys from the South.
Yeah.
not the go-to there. So it was interesting because I was the different one.
Could they understand your accent?
They told me they could.
Yeah.
But the people I lived with, New York, Canada, my boy Tim Riley from Philly,
Yeah.
Jamie Steele from Chicago.
Oh, wow.
You know, I remember those guys. Ian, Josh Blumberg. They were in Jen Mariah, Mieko, Chapel. We all lived together in this big house. It was like remember that MTV show, The Real World?
Yeah, sure.
Well, we had this big, massive house, a couple of stories. We all just had a room. It was cool at the bottom that there were all these guitars, and, you know, we just sit around after work and play the guitar, but then you're looking out on the Rockies.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that about America. I loved that.
Sure.
Tim and I ended up, you know, they had a different way of handling break. If I remember correctly, it was like you teach for a while and then you get 3 weeks off. You don't ever get a summer, quote unquote.
Got it. It's like a full year track.
Yeah. Right. Because it's a
some breaks.
residential high school.
Yeah.
So you can't just send everyone do nothing for summer.
Yeah.
So Tim and I took some of those weeks and we went to Arches in Utah.
Yeah, sure.
We camped out near Taos, New Mexico, and we hiked the south rim of the canyon in Arizona. And that just made me love this country so much more.
Yeah.
I just didn't know about that part of the world. And I have no idea why I wanted to go west, except I just thought I had been in student government, et cetera. Just for me personally, I was ready for something else.
So I may have missed it, but were the others going there also Truman Scholars, or?
No.
Okay.
No.
That was just what you did.
I just happened to be, and I think that they had a relationship between Truman and the Eagle Rock School. And so that's how I think I found out about it, because different grad schools and employers and whatever would come do presentations. So I think they're just one of the ones that there was a relationship with. And so I was fortunate to be able to go.
Yeah.
And
did you ever go out to Grand Junction and see the monument?
I didn't get to do that.
That's pretty cool. It's no Grand Canyon, but it's still pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I went. So it's weird. I love being around people, but then I like to just be alone some too. So residential high school is pretty intense, and you know you're trying to be there for those students, and you're living there, and yet you're also trying to be a good role model. All that stuff's going on. Sometimes on my off days, I just need to get away. So for whatever reason, I like going to Cheyenne. I don't know if it was a George Strait song or what it was, but I mean, I just got to Cheyenne. I'd spend a day or two. Sky just comes down to your toes out there.
Yeah.
And I'll always have great memories of Colorado and Wyoming, and I love that part of the country.
I had Ethan on last week talking about the zoo, and he's from Montana, and I was like, how do you explain to someone the big sky?
Good question.
You know, it's like asking someone to explain how salt tastes. You're like, I don't know. Like, it's just so vast.
Yeah.
We all look up at the night sky every night.
Yeah.
But there's different parts of the country where it's a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've never been to Montana, but I was born in Utah, and I've been to Idaho and Colorado. Love Colorado.
Yeah.
New Mexico, but I'm excited to see the Dakotas or Montana at night. You know,
I wish every kid in this country could see every state in this country.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about it, the way that our country is positioned geographically, the diversity geographically, and just again, you know, it might be the water in one place, the beach in the other, the mountains in the other, the feel of the other. Some places just have a feel.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great country.
There's a difference between we love our town where we're from.
Yes.
We can appreciate, and we should appreciate all that it offers.
Yes.
And when some people cross the line where it's like they'll put you down because you're not from there. Like, well, we can't all live in Gainesville, Florida.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Right.
Or Tuscaloosa or pick a city.
Yeah.
We can't.
Yeah.
But sometimes I have noticed that in people where they'll be like just so entrenched and so encamped to where they're from, they have no tolerance for anyone else.
Yeah, and I don't get that. Like, I'll tell you this, on 9/11, we were all New Yorkers.
Oh yeah.
Period.
I want to ask you about that.
All right.
Because you had just taken a job that month.
I was in Colorado, right?
That was in Colorado.
I was in Colorado. My wife, girlfriend at the time, was in D.C.
Okay. Yeah, because I like your LinkedIn page. It says that you started. So did you start this? Were you in Colorado just shortly before? Because it says September, I think.
I want to say, okay, I'm trying to think back 20 years. I want to say I got there around August.
Okay, so you're already there.
Yeah, but I mean, barely there.
But more, obviously it affected you, but now you're really concerned about your girlfriend, wife now,
Yeah.
because she's in D.C.
Yeah, I just remember the busy signal. I remember sitting at a desk, calling the phone, trying to get her. Lines were down, and you know, I think that was a day something changed, but I think it was also a day that reminded us not to take for granted what we have. I think it was a day to remind us that the enemies of freedom like it when we're fighting with each other.
Yeah.
There's a difference between we don't agree, but we both love this country versus I got nothing for you if we don't agree.
Right.
And I think it's important to look back on 9/11 and remember that when people are thinking about freedom, right? Freedom is not necessarily the norm when you consider world history.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, our country is exhibit A for the idea that freedom can be attained and it can be maintained by people. So I think it's a responsibility we have because the world looks to us and says, really, can this thing really work? Like, it's messy enough in my own family. So bring 350 million people together with their own vision for what the country should be.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that? But on 9/11, I think it reminded us of what could be lost. You know, and I got friends and I know people who they think all the different things on the spectrum. But what I think is important is we've got a country which is a responsibility. And we've not, you know, we still have to maintain and seek our ideals. And we still have to work so that people everywhere, no matter where you're from, no matter anything, they feel like they have access to the opportunities and the benefits in our country.
Yeah.
But I think we were talking a little bit, you know, when we first met. And as I've thought about just, you know, I see everything everyone else sees. But to me, the danger in not pursuing our ideals is not that we are going to fail to reach them.
Mm-hmm.
The danger in not pursuing our ideals is that we could forget they exist altogether. But I don't think you throw the baby out with the bathwater just because we haven't attained to every ideal of a free country.
Yeah.
And if you don't think so, then go try living in one where you're not.
Well, I was just about to say it'd be one thing that you were saying to have all of our children or everyone should be able to see it would be awesome to see all 50 states.
Yeah.
However, it would also be important to see other parts of the world.
Amen. 100%.
Whether second world or third world.
100%.
And hopefully that does something.
Yes.
And changes someone's way of thinking to say, oh, you know what? Things aren't as bad, or I shouldn't fight against it, or I should appreciate more, right? What I have, what we have, how rare. The possession, right, of what we have.
Yes, agreed. And, you know, I've had the fortune to live with people from 10 different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have those conversations. And when you talk to someone who measures the success of a month by whether the food supply is going to reach their neighborhood, it changes your perspective.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's important to say it's not like everyone in America just feels like they're killing it A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are hurting. A lot of people don't have what they need. So I'm not trying to act like we've got it all together. We've got it all. Why aren't we more grateful? But I'm saying at least there are the conditions present in the country which have given that to a lot of people, and at least gives us hope that that can be extended to others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, let me show you something real quick.
Yeah.
On the map, I wanted to bring this up.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember what episode I talked about it, but are you familiar with Idaho Springs, which was, due south of our point on the map there?
No.
There's a Bojo's Pizza.
Okay.
Shout out to Chris Lamb. He and I were talking about this. But,
sounds good.
And there's actually one more near Estes Park, Colorado.
Really?
Yeah, it's a little bit west of there. If you type in Bojo's, it would show it, but it's really good. And then you dip it in the honey sauce. Oh. But just the restaurant, Idaho Springs is a cool little town. It's right off I-70.
Okay.
But it kind of feels like you're in the old mining.
Yeah.
Mining town of Colorado.
And I bet that's some good pizza, man.
Oh, it is so good.
I bet that's some good
and
pizza.
It's a huge restaurant. It's almost like a warehouse.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you walked into Low Mill, but the whole thing was like a restaurant.
It was a pizza place.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Does it smell like pizza?
Oh, yeah.
I love going into pizza shops. They're usually smaller.
Yeah.
But that pizza smell hits you when you get in there.
Well, particularly if you're the thing I love about Colorado is that most of the resorts are right off I-70. They're very easy to get to.
Yeah, okay.
In Utah, you have to go up into about 20 miles into canyons and stuff, and that can be problematic. But Copper, Breckenridge, Keystone, A Basin, they're all right off I-70.
Yep.
Later, you get down to Beaver Creek and Aspen and all that later. But Bojo's is kind of one of those things where you've been out on the slopes and you're a little bit sunburned or windburned, and it's you get through the Eisenhower Tunnel.
Yeah.
You're going back towards Denver. Boom. And you get some pizza.
Well, other end of the spectrum, knowing you like pizza, next time you're on your way to Atlanta, if you haven't been there, hit Mata's Greek Pizza in Anniston. I think it's off of Quintard. And then Indicator, Alfonso's, Francesco's, a couple of good places with some local pizza.
Are they New York style?
No, they're not New York. I think not Mandas. Mandas was when I was a kid. Alfonso's might have a New York style. But then we got a lot of good pizza, a lot of good food in Decatur generally. Yeah. So don't. What is the thing that people say? I heard the phrase "don't sleep on." Don't sleep on it. Yeah. So I'm too far behind for that. But
how did you become a Steelers fan, by the way, for NFL? That's your team.
Yeah. So my good high school buddy, James Stoke. So Stoke had come from Pitt, and that was just my boy. Love Stoke. Don't get to see him. Haven't seen him since my 40th birthday. He flew in. My wife did the surprise party, and she nailed it. And miss Stoke.
He still lives up there?
No, he's in Florida now.
Okay.
But anyways, I think I met the Steelers through him.
Okay.
But then I just like that mindset. Just scrappy, hard scrabble. You know what I'm saying? Just there's no finesse to Steelers football. Yeah. It's football. It's a rough sport. Yeah. And that's how they play, and that's the mindset of that place. And I'm not saying that, I'm Pittsburgh. Like, no, I'm not from Pitt. I don't get that. But I love that mindset. Yeah.
Well, it's a love-hate thing for me, right? Being in Virginia and our the Steelers, I have a lot of friends from Pittsburgh because a lot of them will finish school at Penn State or wherever and then come down to the DC area to work. So it's a good rivalry, right? It's a lot of fun. But I have nothing but respect for their organization. Here's a trivia question. I think you'll know the answer.
I bet I won't.
How many head coaches have they had in their history?
Is it 4?
3.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
I was within shouting distance.
The crappy Washington Commanders, which is the worst franchise in all of sports with the worst owner in all of sports, Dan Snyder. And I wish they could just toss him into a dumpster or something.
Man, you're not feeling Dan Snyder.
No, he is a loser, and we've been losers ever since he owned the team. But and it's frustrating because we used to be a heck of a franchise.
Doug Williams, man.
Yeah, it was just amazing living in Washington as a kid, and that man has ruined everything. But they've only had 3 head coaches. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. That's it.
That's strong, isn't it?
Yeah. Washington will go through 3 in a year. But that, I mean, hats off to talk about the Hines family and everybody that owns that. That's what in sports, it's not just about the team, it's the organization.
Yeah, right.
Right. You really appreciate the front office and all the back office stuff that goes into what makes a dynasty a dynasty.
Yeah.
There's so many hands that contribute to that.
That's right.
All right. So let's say you graduate with the law degree, but you've never really practiced law, correct?
Yeah. So my dad had to drop out of law school.
Okay.
He loved law school. That man loved it.
Where did he go to school?
He was going to, he only went for a year. I think it was to Cumberland.
Okay.
So he leaves after a year to come help my grandfather run the family business.
Mm-hmm.
And he never pressured me to go to law school. He never said he wanted me to go to law school. I just decided I was going to go to law school. And I wanted that to happen. And I wanted to get the bar. And I figured I probably don't want to be a lawyer, but I've got a law license and degree from Alabama if I need it. So
yeah,
I can go into business and start up in that world. But, just PSA, starting law school 9 days after you get married is probably not the best idea. My poor wife and many others tried to tell me this, and I was 25 or so and knew everything. So I didn't listen. And so the first year of law school, they tell you you're going to disappear. Just tell everyone you're gone. And then, there was a time in history where that first year of marriage was like just the two of you, right? In some cultures. And that was a bad idea to start law school then. It was my fault. It was a bad decision. But, it was a good education. I got the license, passed the bar and all that. And it comes up, I use it in different contexts. I don't practice. I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
I'm a make the deal guy. I want someone else to hash out the meaning of is or reasonable on page 40, subsection B2. Right. That's me. But I went to Alabama and very proud of the rankings and notoriety that the law school in Tuscaloosa has received. That's a good thing for our whole state.
Yeah.
We got a lot of talented people in Alabama.
No, I think it makes you that much more well-rounded, right? There's sometimes I wish I had done like electrical engineering as an undergrad, because I think that would have played well into a lot of things that you can do, in a profession.
Yeah.
But like you said, whether you're interested in it or not, when you're in a business, well, there's a lot of legalities, there's a lot of contracts, and that's a huge value add for someone to, no matter what your position is to understand the law, right? And
it's true.
Angles and whatever else, because it's gonna factor in.
The only thing is, well-rounded is messy and often uncomfortable. So if you're kind of aligned with everyone, you're not going to be aligned with everyone in every context, right?
Yeah.
But well-rounded means being exposed to things that may not necessarily jive with your personality or your disposition or anything.
Yeah.
So it can be uncomfortable. I remember being in law school and I'd raise my hand and say, I don't feel like the business should be sued for this much for this thing happening. I grew up in a business. I know what it takes. You can spend 3 generations building something that can be torn down in 5 minutes. It's hard to build a business. It's hard to sustain it.
Yeah.
And you need those jobs that those businesses create to make this whole thing run. So I'd be the one in class saying, well, okay, I understand the situation, but is this something that should require the destruction of this business? Is this something that should cost all those people their livelihoods? And, sometimes people are like, you're in law school, buddy. You're not in an MBA program.
Yeah.
And so,
it's ingrained in you.
Yeah. I mean, and again, is there never a time when lawyers are, no, sometimes lawyers are necessary. And I get that.
Yeah.
but it was odd being in there. Just like my second semester or second summer, I got offered a chance to go work at Walmart in Bentonville.
Okay.
And so they gave me a chance to stay on, finish law school at Arkansas, but stay on the business side. And I often find in my life that I'm caught between groups of people, and I find myself making the case for the other because I've had exposure to both.
Mm-hmm.
So to grow up in a mom and pop and then end up in Bentonville,
Yeah. Was the antithesis
those
of.
are very different perspectives.
Yeah.
And yet, you leave with respect for. I decided to go back to Alabama. I had one parent and one grandparent left at the time. And so we moved back. Those people were really good to us. They were. And it was interesting to find out that Walmart is more of a logistics company as much as anything else, right? And so some respect for what organizations like Walmart have accomplished. At the same time, if we lose the character, if we lose the small town focus and feel of the mom and pops, if we go too far in the direction of making it harder to just own a business and give 4 or 5 people a job and provide really good service, I think we're going to regret it, and I think we're going to miss it. I really do. And I think that small business, to me, is the backbone of this country.
Yeah.
It is. And the idea that a person can start something, provide an honest service for a fair price, and make a reasonable profit for taking on all that risk and worry and everything else you have to do, I think is a good thing, as long as we are extending the opportunity to do so to anyone who wants it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I feel strongly about that. So again, I'm at Walmart talking about, your vendors need to make money too, right? I'm at home talking to someone who might be coming closer to what I grew up in, saying, well, there's things that can be learned from Walmart. So no one's ever happy with me.
Yeah. One of my favorite things, I got an MBA and I loved economics.
Yeah.
And I finally, the light bulb went off when I saw like the economic cycle, and appreciating business, or kind of like you said, like, okay, you're going to earn some money, but then with that money, you're going to be doing stuff with that benefit a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Whether that, if it's small business in your community, and then they in turn do what they do. And sometimes you're paying taxes, or sometimes you're investing, and it's just this whole engine that's very efficient, can be very efficient.
Yeah.
Right. That to just ultimately produce good.
Yes.
And produce a, good quality of life for all of us.
Yeah.
Let's jump back to the Entrepreneurial Center and Launch 2035.
Okay.
Can you first talk about how you got involved with Launch 2035?
Yeah.
And then how that kind of corresponds with the Entrepreneurial Center, and kind of which came first, or they come at the same time, and go from there.
Yeah. So the E-Center came first, and,
I should say the E-Center. Sorry.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just shorthand. We have been working to streamline the branding.
Yeah. E-Center.
But my focus really for certainly the first 3.5, 4 years has just been the E-Center, Decatur, Morgan County. That's been 95% of the focus. Okay. I think that, from the board that I've been fortunate to work with and bring people into, and with the partners we have good partners. Our chamber is one of the best. Our economic development, one of the best. They're award-winning. Our downtown organization, award-winning. Our tourism, award-winning.
Somebody won an award yesterday, I believe, right? Wasn't it?
Let's see. Danielle Gibson at Tourism just got State Executive of the Year for Tourism. Crystal Brown at Chamber, I think, is chairing the state chamber. There's just a lot of strong people at these organizations.
Awesome.
And our focus has been on how do we work together in practice. We're all very move the needle type people, not just do things for the sake of doing them. We want it to improve life for the people we're fortunate to serve. those positions are a responsibility.
Okay.
Those positions are a responsibility, and I think we all take that very seriously when we meet together. Our conversations are not just, well, you're doing this and we want to do it too. Kind of, it's more, what's going to be productive, right? So, to your question, the goal with the eCenter has been to launch our quote unquote 2.0, which is all the stuff we do beyond being a business incubator, while also making sure that we're serving our clients well. And one big challenge we've had is that, and I don't know if it's necessarily like a post 2020 thing or not. I know there's been overall trends of people not going to the offices as more. We keep staying full. All right. We had 2 offices come available in the last 7 days. They're gone.
Really?
They're gone. Okay. But people are not, for a few reasons, people are not just coming to their office and staying in there 50 hours a week. So I can open the door and say, hey, Troy, how you doing, man? You tell me about what's going on. Maybe we identify a problem spot. Maybe we identify a way we can help you, right? That was the whole business model. That was how we delivered our services. That was how you consumed them. Well, now you have some people who, whether it's health or otherwise, they're just still reticent to come into their office all the time.
So this is the office inside the eCenter.
Yeah. So these are the offices inside of the actual facility.
Right.
All right. So then there's a second thing going on, which is these companies are not just selling into Decatur, Morgan County anymore. They're selling nationally. They're selling globally. They're going to Bentonville. They're going to trade shows. They're going to Nashville. They're going abroad. So they're not there. And then you have new types of businesses like Josh Garrett, young man who's got a phenomenal business, Garrett Contracting. They're an excavation company. They do a phenomenal job. They're getting bigger jobs. But Josh is going to be out with the trucks. Josh is out managing projects. He's not going to be in his office all the time. So he's coming in for 4 hours. He's coming in for 5 hours. Brian Bear at Zone, Kiana, who owns a massage therapy company, Reggie Jackson, owns PQ. All these people are coming in, they're coming out 3 hours, 4 hours. Hey, I'm going to be here 10 to 2. Can you come meet me at 11?
Yeah.
So we're having to upend our entire service delivery because our customers are consuming our services differently. Now, to the other part of your question, the thing that I think where I've gotten to in my mind, though, is there are such great opportunities, first of all, through this very unique economy that we have here in Huntsville. So how do we make sure that people in Decatur, Morgan County have a seat at that table? I was fortunate to get to go to the Material Command,
Army Material Command
event 2 or 3 weeks ago in Huntsville. And just talking to them about what their needs are, contractors they're looking for. I mean, we've got some of those skill sets in Morgan County and throughout North Alabama. How do we build a bridge so that they have an opportunity not to have anything given to them, but to compete?
Yeah.
So it began to dawn on me, first of all, that we will all be stronger, not just the surrounding counties. I mean, Huntsville needs the services.
Yeah.
They have the need for those services here. So it dawned on me that there could be value for Decatur, Morgan County in building those bridges. And then similarly, from a regional perspective, the other big thing is acting regionally. Now, look, you can't forget about home. You can't always be up here thinking about the region and neglect your home, right? But things like the Singing River Trail are not possible by definition without the region. And so it's helped me see and buy into the idea of our children being able to have a hiking, biking, walking trail that takes them all over this beautiful North Alabama. I mean, that's amazing. By definition, it has to be regional, which is why John Kavach is having to drive all over the county. I mean, had lunch with him in Decatur he'll probably be in 3 counties in the next 4 hours while we're talking. So
200 miles plus.
yeah, no doubt. But I think I didn't become aware of it. Our chamber, Decatur Morgan County Chamber of Commerce, under the leadership of John Seymour at the time, invested in this Launch 2035 effort.
Cool.
So we already had some people involved in it. And, eventually I was asked to chair the entrepreneurship side. So Launch 2035 regional organization, entrepreneurship, workforce, land use are the 3 areas of focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked to chair the entrepreneurship and now co-chair with Tony Eberhardt, who, is a friend and just absolute rock star. And so, it's been really exciting to get to meet people like you, like Rob, like JA, like JK. Love them. And at the same time, though, I always want to be able to connect our regional efforts to benefit for the region, but benefit for Decatur Morgan County, because that's a responsibility that's entrusted to me.
Sure.
Through being in that position.
It's like a constituency, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's who we serve.
Let's talk about what is the criteria for a company coming in that wants to benefit from the e-center.
Yeah.
And can we talk about that? I'm interested, or I'm not me. So a company's interested.
Yeah.
And they approach you. What is the thresholds, the criteria, the constraints, everything that have to be met?
Yeah. So the constraint is, if we just set the hard and fast, then by definition, like if we're going to say, for example, you've got to be at a certain revenue threshold to get into the e-center. Well, aren't you there to help people start?
Yeah.
Like, aren't you there to help them
Right.
survive those brutal years? So the first thing that we look for is viability. So one of the hardest parts of my job is I got to encourage you enough, because many times no one else is. I want to encourage you to be an entrepreneur. I want to encourage you to be entrepreneurial. I've got to care enough about you to say you're not ready yet, to say your idea is not ready yet. I'm concerned about you spending the next 3 years of your life plus your life savings on something that you can't get 20 customers for, even if you offer them a 50% discount on what you think you're going to have to charge to make any money.
You're like a Shark Tank, really.
A little bit.
Right. Vetting it.
Yeah, so we have to vet for viability. That's number one. Number two is coachability. So if you've got a good business, but you think you know everything, what do you need us for?
Right.
If you're just coming to take advantage of the office, and the resources when you see fit, what are we doing? So we screen for that. And then 3, we look to your circumstances. So, look, the reality is there's a lot of great entrepreneurs, but if you've got to work 50, 60 hours a week just to make it, I respect that. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you going to also make the commitment to be at the e-center, taking up one of those limited spaces in place of someone who's ready to start a business?
Right.
You need a lot of circumstances align if you just want to burn the ships and go start a business. Now, if you want to build it up parallel to something else you're doing, okay, that's a different conversation. So, that's what we screen for. Typically, we have a 3-year window. Now, everyone will say, well, what are the exceptions, right? Or how do you decide? Well, if you get to the end of the 3 years and you're not ready, you're just not ready to go. Infinity Software, which is a Broker Pro, transportation logistics software company, Lightwire Solutions, IT support, they were ready to go. And they've got their own buildings in the community. We just did groundbreakings with the chamber for them. They're hiring right now, right? They're ready. What if you get to the end of 3 years and your business model was photography, and now the iPhone's got the Hollywood camera?
Yeah.
If you have to pivot at the end of 3 years, we'll work with you. But then we're going to return to viability, coachability, circumstances, ability to persevere. And it really is, it's a gut feel. It's not pure feeling, because I can measure against those metrics that I just gave to you. But you really do have to analyze it case by case and get to know a person when you're doing it. And also, it's important. Most incubators, and we do this as well, there are certain nonprofits that get in. They're building an organization. They're growing it. So it's customary. So we've got a few of those as well. And then partners like the BBB who have an office in the e-center.
So are you helping them to seek SBA loans or funding and state programs and kind of helping them navigate what monies they could qualify for?
Yes. And it's hard.
Sure.
It's hard. I've been thinking a little bit more just from my meetings with entrepreneurs. We need more early stage money available. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that might be the financial institutions being loosened a little bit to back companies a little earlier. It might be an increased SBA guarantee that we're looking at. But we need early stage money to flow more. If you have a great idea and you're committed to excellence in it, right? But you need 50, 100,000 to really take a shot, to hire a salesperson to go see if people want to advertise on your show, for example. We need that money more readily available. And people say, oh, well, that's what angel investment's for. That's what venture capital is for. Well, number one, 95%, probably well over 95% of businesses do not qualify for angel investment.
Right.
Number two, angels don't typically invest in the kind of business that can help you get a second home on Smith Lake. They invest in the type of business that can 5x in value and it's going to be sold.
Right.
That's how they get their returns. If you understand venture economics, basically, you're giving me a big pot of money, right? And you're telling me to go invest it. And you want a 10x return on that money. And I'm getting a salary and I'm getting some portion of the upside. Okay, well, here's what that means. When you evaluate my business, you've got to determine, is this a business that's in a position to get me a 10x return? Because 8 or 9 of my businesses are probably going to fail.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to get to that point psychologically or as an investment, it's probably already a business that is making good money. That's why, in many respects, it can be easier to raise 20 million than 200,000.
Yeah.
And so the idea that there's just plenty of cash out there, there's a lot of cash on the sidelines, but it's deployed within very limited confines.
Yeah.
So if you're just a person with an idea, or you're a plumber who wants to double the size of your company, we need more and more options. I mean, why not let a family give people a $5,000 tax credit to invest in startups? Mm-hmm. Let them take it off their taxes. Give us access to that. There's accredited investors, nothing against them. Those are limited pools, and now we're creating new ways for unaccredited investors to get involved in it. But this is a big, big, big problem. We need that early money. And I'm not saying, I'd love it if we could go back to the days when it's a handshake. That's my grandfather. Like, your word is your bond. Mm-hmm. If you say it, you're going to do it.
Yeah, sure.
Even if it's not advantageous or convenient down the road, period. Your word, your bond, that's that.
What's is the legal structure? Are you not a nonprofit?
We are an independent economic development nonprofit.
Okay.
So we could invest in companies. That's not off the table. There is that in the private sector. You do have accelerators, which typically, if you get in, they're going to give you, 25, 50, 100,000 for 4, 5, 6% of your company and a convertible note, potentially if you want some follow-on money.
Right.
But this is a big, big issue. We still need more early stage money for people who, not just anyone with a random idea who's going to go blow it and waste it. But, when I look at your podcast, right, look, the equipment, you're bringing a degree of seriousness and professionalism and focus to this, which is what entrepreneurship requires. Mm-hmm. You're not some guy saying, hey, I think I'm going to do a podcast and I'll just kind of talk into my phone. I need $100,000.
Right.
Like, this is a serious operation. It's part of why I wanted to come on, just because I love being with people who love what they do.
Yeah.
But I love people who are willing to give what it takes, willing to sacrifice, willing to make Saban says you're going to have the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's very clear to me you take this work very seriously.
Yeah.
There's a difference between asking for more funding for people with that level of commitment versus more funding for someone who says, well, give me $100,000. I'm going to try to arbitrage crypto and see how it goes.
Right.
You know, nothing against that either, but that's a little hard to make that case.
You know, when I started doing live streaming, I was actually telling the story. I was interviewed today over at the Redstone Gateway.
Yep.
Mantech, the company I work for, we're residents over there. And James Lomax, shout out to him, interviewed me, and as part of COPT. They're like the property management owners of the Gateway and stuff, the leasing agents. But he was asking me about my early start, and I told him I had built this press box that sat on the football field, and the reason I did that was I couldn't figure out how to make any money. I wasn't going to make any money sitting up in the high school's press box. It's their product.
Yep.
The kids are their product, and you can't charge people even $5 to watch a football game because they won't do it.
Right.
They want it for free. This was 10 years ago. Nowadays, of course, it would have to be free. So I had my own box built. I wish I don't know. I think I have the pictures on another drive somewhere, but and I sold banner space for local sponsors.
Yeah.
So that when the people came to the game, they're gonna consume the product or service of those sponsors.
Love it.
The people on the internet, no. The reason I was providing the service was that so Grandma in California or Uncle Joe in Mexico or whoever can watch this game.
Yep.
Okay. So it worked. But I remember my brother-in-law made this point once where, you know, I was like, hey, I guess I was exploring this idea with them. He's like, look, people they need to get away from thinking that they're going to get some return on the investment because they gave you $1,500 to hang their banner at the high school. He feels like it's your obligation as a small business and you're investing in your community.
Okay.
And it's hard to track, right? That we get more customers at the pizza joint. And he just felt like, because he had his own small business, he's like, I do that because it's a way of me giving back. Right. This community gave me everything to get to this point and to have a successful small business. It's the least I can do to find ways. In a way, it's almost no different than just sponsoring something.
Okay.
Right? Mantech, we can sponsor a Trash Pandas game. We can donate money to the zoo, the Nowls, or maybe we donate to the East Center because it's our way of giving back or the cyber school. They just had their ribbon cutting today.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right? So in a way, it's this paradigm shift. It doesn't always have to be about returns.
Right.
Invest in your community, in your region, and it's the corporation's extension in a way of pride, right? And to say, I don't know exactly what this is going to do, but I trust that John and his crew are going to be good, arbiters, or they're going to vet these people and not squander the money, and they're going to try to put it to good use, and they're going to do their best to make these things successful. Does that make sense?
It does. I think working with entrepreneurs all day, I have a very close to that perspective, but it's a both and.
Yeah.
And again, I have a unique ability, I think, to not fully agree with anyone on some issues.
Yeah.
So like with that particular issue, what's in my mind is, first of all, that business does have to steward its resources,
Sure.
Be smart, seek ROI, because if it doesn't, it's not going to be a business that can't help anyone, right? That's number one. Number two is that's your community. So yeah, as a leader in your community, there's a responsibility to look for ways to support it, right? But number three, and then here's where you get to the rub, here's where you get to the heart of it. We have an obligation to support those small businesses. Mm-hmm. They're not our personal piggy banks to get whatever we happen to need.
Right.
Then we don't take into account them as a service. We price shop them against the internet, and we want to give the extra 30 cents. Now look, there's a lot of people out there. It's rough out there. Mm-hmm. And I get that. I understand that. I grew up in a 2% profit margin industry. And I mean,
high volume.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes not.
Yeah.
Right. And so we certainly have our family budget that we live on. Okay. But at the same time, I think it's important to realize that we want these businesses to stay in business. We want them to support our community. And this gets to, we have this consumption mindset, but there's a reciprocity there. You know, there's an obligation in our communities, support those businesses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It might be more convenient to go online, search for the book I want, and ship it than it is to go to the store, see if they actually have it, and risk that they might not. But if I'm not going to ever do that, how mad do I really get at the bookstore because they didn't go support my Little League team?
Yeah.
You know, that bookstore's got to stay in business.
Yeah.
By the way, being a bookstore in 2022 is really hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These
Totally
businesses are under, I mean, the internet, I mean, yeah, it's a good thing, but it's also created this zero-sum mentality to some degree where, you know, if you've got the Amazon and you've got the Microsoft and all of those purchases from those companies are flowing back to HQ in Seattle, guess what? Seattle booms. Okay. But there's 1,000 communities that now don't have a bookstore.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know the tension. I mean, I've lived it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Amazon's bad. I'm not saying the internet's bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as an economic matter, our local businesses need our support too.
Yeah.
They're not just there to endlessly give. Their money doesn't just magically appear.
Yeah.
We have an obligation to try to support those businesses where we can. And I think people are recognizing that. They're wanting to, you know, whatever, eat, shop, whatever, local. And again, I don't think you go to the other extreme and demonize companies that are providing a good service. No one's forcing us to buy online.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if people choose to buy online, that's their right. But don't expect small businesses to be this endless fountain of cash.
Yeah.
And not ever take any time to support them when they need it.
Can we talk about the Shark Tank?
Yeah.
That was early in the spring, right?
Yeah.
And I meant to talk to, I think, John Kovach about it.
Yeah.
But can you talk about the Shark Tank and, you know, and I guess fill in the picture of what that means for our listeners?
Yeah. So, I mean, the more time that passes, I'm like, man, that was unbelievable. So, started with the entrepreneurship side of Launch 2035. Again, that's a volunteer role, 21. And the goal was, okay, let's go out and do something.
This is you and Tony Eberhardt as a co-chair.
Yeah, so that's right. So she came in very soon after.
Okay.
And the idea was we need to do something as a region entrepreneurially. That needs to happen. The problem was we didn't have many models to look to. Okay? Regionalism sounds great, and then you jump into working to build it. And so what we came up with is we want to do a regional Shark Tank for North Alabama. And, Kovach had the thought of, what if, let's do it, but partner with Sing River Trail. And there were people who understandably thought, how does that make sense? Like it's confusing. Mm-hmm. It is a little confusing. Mm-hmm. There's like there's Launch 2035. There's the land use side, which is doing the trail. There's the entrepreneurship side, which is doing what we call Launch Tank. And now those people are all working together. And now you've got the SRT Launch Tank. We had to have a meeting with one of our donors just to explain all the organizations.
Right.
It was not the cleanest from a branding standpoint.
Okay.
But this is an important point about regionalism. So when we started, you know why we did that? Because it just was better to say yes. If you're going to make a mistake in regionalism, make the mistake of saying yes, not the mistake of saying no.
Or not trying.
So here's what happened. We ended up getting, in John and his efforts, someone who was already going around to 9 counties and more, who could then begin talking about this thing called Launch Tank, which no one had ever heard of. Okay? Mm-hmm. We, in turn, were able to show people the Sing River Trail is not just about walking, hiking, and biking. It's a platform for starting businesses. It's a platform for the businesses that are already there, because if people come on that trail one day, that helps those businesses that are there. It encourages others to start.
I regret calling it Shark Tank. My fault. Launch Tank.
Oh, no.
But-
We thought of it as a Shark Tank for North Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. But branded as the Launch Tank.
Branded as the SRT launch tank.
Got it.
And so then we decided, okay, we're going to do this. So at the time it was John, Tony, and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can't tell you, it was a startup. I mean, we had no idea what we needed to do. We had no idea how to reach people and engage them from 9 counties. We had no idea what this was even going to look like. So we were having to call people with a half-formed event, trying to just say, this is what we're going to try to do. 38 people might come. And the goal was to bring people from all over the counties. We had judges we had recruited, and then we wanted businesses to apply. And then the judges picked businesses. We were going to try to raise money, and then you win money and prizes based on where you finish at the launch tank. But I mean, I can't tell you, if you've ever organized an event and you've put your name on it, and of course your organization is affiliated with it, not to mention Launch 2035, you don't have any idea, is anyone going to come? Is anyone going to apply?
Yeah.
And anyone who's ever organized an event will also tell you, everything matters to get to the day of. And the day of, nothing matters except executing the day of.
Mm-hmm.
If you get everything right before the day of and you botch that, it's still a failure.
Yeah.
And that would be a big black eye for regionalism. So there was a lot at stake. And just the 3 of us were meeting, and this is on top of our normal jobs.
Sure.
I was fortunate that my board supported me in it. But I mean, there was nothing to delegate because you were figuring out what you have to do in real time.
Yeah.
And then there's things that you don't anticipate. Then there's work that spawns work. There's this whole backstory, right? And so then in January, we had enough formed where we could at least say, here's what this is going to be. We hope. So we recruited people from other counties, our county coordinators. You have people like Craig Johnson in Lawrence County, Andrew Dollar, Pammy Jamar, Limestone. There's Laura Braswell, Marshall, Giles McDaniels, there's Lydia, Pennington, a lot of people in different counties who jumped in with us and helped encourage people from their counties to come to this thing. Again, nothing has ever been done regionally in North Alabama for entrepreneurship.
Sure. And real quick, going back to what we talked about at the very beginning of the episode, I would imagine you guys had to kind of prop each other up and give some pep talks when you're like, hey, man, I don't know if we're going to do this.
All the time.
And you're like, no. And someone had to be positive at that moment, right?
100%.
One of the 3.
Yes. And it's not just you can't have ego, right? I mean, ego is such a drain of energy anyways, but there's no time for that.
I like that.
Like
drain of energy.
You've got to make it drains you, right? When people are, and so, I mean, man, we had to make decisions in real time, and there's a whole marketing apparatus.
Yeah.
There's a logistics apparatus, a fundraising apparatus, an event execution apparatus, making sure that the PowerPoints are loaded, making sure the judges' name cards are spelled correctly, making sure the food is there, all this stuff, right? And we're just 3 volunteers, and we felt like it wouldn't be fair to bring other people into that work in real time because we didn't always know what the work was going to be.
Yeah.
And so then these other people came along and helped us tell the story, spread the word, and they pitched in many ways ultimately with the event as well. Mm-hmm. But here's my point. We had when I say what if 12 people came? I mean, you think about it. What if Mantech partnered with 2 other organizations and you're going to do this big regional thing?
I know.
It doesn't, that's not great.
No.
It's not great for regionalism, not great for Mantech, not great for anyone involved with it. And we're just wondering, right? And so we were, of course, tracking attendance online. We had the Eventbrite or whatever. But I mean, what does that mean before the day of?
Most people don't RSVP.
Okay. Yeah. So we get to the day of, man, and there's like 220 something people there.
Wow.
There are 43 applicants, I believe it was. The judges had picked the finalists by that time. And then it was just magic. I'll never forget. The crowd was so into it. They were scoring the companies from their own table. They were talking to the back and forth with the people who were presenting. They were applauding mid-slide. They were engaged. It was so funny because when the judges leave, we have the point where the judges leave the room to convene, and we've got to tabulate and finalize scores. All right. So I think Tony and JK were down there. I was upstairs with the judges. And Tony will tell you that no one wanted to hear anything else. Everybody was done. They just wanted to know the scores.
Yeah.
They were invested at that point, right? So they're trying to talk and present, and everyone's just like, we just want to know who won, right? And there was just this electricity, man. And two people, Mike and Mika Fellows, who started the winning company.
Okay.
Fellows Faith Enterprises, which is like, let's see, glamping, camping, sauna, jacuzzi, that whole world all brought into one, which is what they're working to build. Amazing story. I think they're engineers. They sold their house. They were living in a trailer running around COVID. They realized how much they had been missing not being outdoors. And then they just wanted to share that. So now they're starting this. They literally sold their house and we're going to go start this company. That's what we're going to do. So when they win, there's just an amazing picture that got all over the media of the two of them when they win.
Wow.
And you see what they had sacrificed to get to that day. This is a true family business.
Yeah.
And you saw the reaction of the crowd, and there was just this electricity. I haven't experienced that in a room in so long. And I don't know if ever, because maybe it was just us getting finally to the other side of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but other people told me the same thing. It was an unbelievable moment, and it just spoke to, here was a time when people feel like we hear more about the division than we see the unity. And there is unity among many people in this country. Mm-hmm. There are friends in this country who don't agree on everything.
Sure.
It was such a moment of, and I'm a practical nuts and bolts thinker, not a feeler as much. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I analyze things and I trust data and all that stuff. But it was a time when people came together. They tried something that was truly a risk.
Right.
No precedent for it. And magic happened. And it was just an amazing time. And we were able to show off the Cook Museum of Natural Science. Mm-hmm. Shout out to the Cook Museum, USA Today's #1 best new museum in the country.
Oh, wow.
Okay. 25 minutes away from where we're sitting. Like take your family 10 times. Like it's an educational institution.
Wow.
Right? We're able to show that off. We're able to talk a little bit about Decatur. And it was just an unbelievable time, not for the event, but for what it signified and what it symbolized. It was almost like we got to start with a vision for what is possible. And now we've got to run the gauntlet together, but don't forget what is possible.
Yeah. How much time elapsed? It starts and you're feeling like this is good. Like, okay.
Yeah.
The stress kind of goes away and like, all right, this is good.
Yeah. There were two things going on simultaneously there. Mm-hmm. There was the feel of the room, right?
Yeah.
And just the crowd and the buzz and the engagement, like that is off the charts. Meanwhile, logistically, we're dealing with some things. So like I go up to welcome everyone at the beginning, and this is the deep breath. It's time to go. Everyone kind of settles down and looks at me, and I say, good morning, everyone. Mic's not on.
Oh, boy.
It had been on. I don't know how it turned out, so I had to go back to the back. Hey, guys, can we get the mic on? Got the mic back on. And those guys did a great job.
Sure.
The events logistics were great. Okay, so then before it, we had run through the PowerPoints with everyone. They were all loaded onto a laptop. And, there's a way to, you finish, and then You need to arrange things so that when the next person comes, it's up. Well, that just wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, oh, I got it. But then when the lights are on, the glare hits you, all the eyes are on, it's a different deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So John Kavach ends up having to go back and forth just to turn off the previous PowerPoint, start the new one. So then we're getting the judges up and we're seeing like the restlessness. People want it. They're excited. They're ready to blow. They want, who won?
Yeah.
Okay. So then Tony's trying to get through the program with John. There's all this stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
Right. We pulled in one of the county coordinators, Andrew Dollar, to help us like tabulate the scores so we could do that efficiently. The other county coordinators were scattered throughout, just helping people understand what was going on. So there was never any sense logistically that we were done because the unknown kept hitting us. We were way ahead of schedule. We were very concerned about credibility. If we're going to tell you 2 hours, we're going to hit 2 hours.
Sure.
Well, then we got way out ahead of schedule, much further out than we thought we would be. And so we're having a, like, oh, we can slow down a minute. Except we really can't because everyone really wants to know who won. You know?
Yeah.
And so it was right after the event.
Okay.
So we knew that the room was just magic. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'll always remember that. But logistically, I mean, I had a checklist of 1 billion things that I'm checking off. I'm watching the agenda. I'm watching the clock.
Yeah.
I'm watching the screen projector that's our plan B if our laptop goes out. You know, we had another issue where the laptop we were going to use broke, so we had to use mine. Well, at the time, I've got a Mac and the battery is messed up. So if you unplug the battery, it just dies randomly.
Yeah.
So I was telling the people, if we've got to use my laptop, you cannot allow the cord to come out.
Yeah. It's got to stay powered on.
It will stay powered. It will be a huge buzzkill. So you're like watching all this kind of stuff. And I think when it was over, though, and you see these students with Mike and Mika, you see journalists who, you know, tend to be kind of stone-faced, analytical, who's smiling and enjoying it. And people are hugging and all this stuff's going on.
That's awesome.
People are staying and talking. Oh, man. That feeling, if you could bottle the feeling, it's kind of like bottling new car smell.
Oh, yeah.
You always wish you could have that smell. And I always wish we could have that feeling.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, man.
It's cool to hear the story behind the story because, you know, it's not unfortunately. The reality is people are going to come and go and have no idea the effort, the hours that you put into that. You know, to them, is if it came off seamless, you know, but it's sometimes you want people to appreciate. Do you know how hard this was? This is really hard.
And it was, you can't, the other thing about regionalism is you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a Craig and a Lydia and a Laura, a Giles, an Andrew, a Pammy, you know, if you don't have those people willing to step out with you and do that work thanklessly in many respects, it doesn't work. Because I can't go to Jackson County and build up 20 years of relationships and experience in a week.
Yeah.
And get people engaged. You've got to have people who are evangelists for this in all the places that you define as your region.
Yeah. Let's transition. And I want to bring up, we're going to play the pick six. I've got some things prepared for you based on your interests and hobbies, if you will. But one of those that of note is that you take at least 2 solo retreats a year.
Yeah.
And you don't go far. Go down to Coleman,
Alabama.
And I think it's brilliant to just unplug. And like you said, it's not like you're just sitting in the woods on a rock all day. You might go to a movie, or you can go, it's just your time to detach and to think and to process. Yeah. So you did it in June or July?
July.
The most recent?
Yeah.
Anything you want to share from that?
Sure. It was in the middle of a really, really hard time. Our family has gone through a good bit. You know, my wife has struggled with some health issues, which she's been coming out of. And so we got to the end of 2019 and we thought, okay, this is the end of a season of our lives and we're looking forward to getting back to normal.
Yeah.
In December of 2019. So it took about 7 weeks, right when COVID was hopping around Seattle, for the doctors to say, we're not sure you survived this.
Really?
Yeah. About my wife. And okay, what do you do with that? And I talked to my board. I'm so fortunate. Not everyone had this opportunity. We called our school. And within about 2 days, we had moved our life inside.
Okay.
Because and when I say inside, I mean just to our house.
Yeah.
We just didn't know, but we had no leeway. You know, we didn't have the flexibility to be able to think about COVID in terms of what should the whole country do or this or that opinion about it. We just knew that our medical team thought it was a serious, serious threat, and they didn't know anything about it.
Gotcha.
And they said the safest thing is going to be isolation for a while. And so that basically ended up being a year.
Wow.
And it was, I remember later that year, I mean, we got to around November. So now it's been like, 7-8 months. And we saw an ad for Christmas cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, but the ones that the little blurbs they write, they're just so pretentious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I got a 2028 Lamborghini and Jill's enjoying the brand new gold medal that she won in the Olympics. And, our new house is even better than we imagined. And I don't got any problem with that. But I'm just thinking, okay, we saw an owl. That was our highlight.
Yeah.
For 2020. We were driving around. We saw this big owl in a tree. It looked like out of Harry Potter or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up being isolated till about March of 21.
Wow.
And I mean, isolated meant we'd have friends over. We'd sit outside 15 feet apart in 98-degree weather and talk for an hour or so, and then they'd leave.
What you needed, though, too.
Yeah, 100%.
You needed that interaction.
100% you do. And then 4 months after that, we found out that the whole time we had been home, a small silent leak had been slowly destroying our flooring. So then we had to move out of our house for about a year. We just got home 2 months ago.
Oh, my goodness.
So for a year, we couldn't go anywhere except home. And then for a year, we could go anywhere except for home.
Except for home.
And so we're just now coming out of that right now.
My goodness.
And it's been a challenge, but I'll also say that I feel like God's taught us a lot through it. And we tell our kids, we've had some unusual challenges. We've also been given some unusual kindness and grace from other people. And I almost feel like I don't usually get into the specifics because I'm not trying to draw attention to, look at, but I'm just saying many people were very kind to us. And we try to tell our kids, not everyone has that. So try to be that person for other people.
It's like a refiner's fire.
No doubt, like a refiner's fire. It's the only kind there is.
Man, it's easy to say when you got on the other side of it, well done,
Praise
you
the
did
Lord.
it. But goodness gracious, to go through that.
Footprints in the sand?
Yeah.
It feels like more like that.
Right.
Like if you told me now you're going to have to go through that next 2 years, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How?
You wouldn't even be able to process it.
How? Seriously, how?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a mercy. It was a blessing in many respects.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
So I'm going to show you some pictures.
Yeah, okay.
And they come from, let's just, you said as a family you like to visit cabins that are kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you several pictures, and I just want you to kind of comment on kind of what you see. But I tried to pick some that they were situated differently.
Okay.
And then actually at the end, we'll talk about the Grand Canyon.
All right, cool.
All right, so let me switch screens. This is the Pick 6. So that's kind of for those that are listening, we now have just go ahead and describe it for those that are listening, what you see.
Well, it's idyllic. The water is that perfect, beautiful blue water. Reminds me of Buffalo Bill Cody Lake out in Wyoming. You've got a good, just solid cabin. It's not a tiny house, just like a cabin. You got a couple of chairs on the front deck, and you got a beautiful view of the trees. You got the sky. You got the greenery everywhere. It just feels simple. Slow down, strip down, take a breath. You're probably going to be more healthy when you leave the place than when you came to it.
You know, one thing I noticed, we were talking about hard work earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of wood being split.
No doubt.
And or some stumps to split wood on. And I'm all about that.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, give me some exercise. I'm gonna do it by hand.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, take a maul or an axe and split some wood.
Man, the first time I met my wife's her parents out in Illinois, where they are, so her stepdad and mom, somehow I ended up chopping wood for 4.5 hours. I just had an axe, and I mean, it was reasonably sharp, which makes that's critically important.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, not a chainsaw, an axe.
Right.
And man, I just spent 4.5 hours splitting logs, re-splitting logs. You know, I don't know how many times the axe bounced up and smacked me in the face, you know.
Father-in-law's like, free labor.
Yeah, he's like, well, good to meet you. He's a great guy, though. And you're right. There's definitely some wood. And one of our favorite things, and I'm not trying to act like, you know, I'm the best outdoorsman ever, because I'm not. But you can't beat a real fire, man.
No.
I want a real fireplace.
Yeah.
I don't want a gas. You want a gas? It's America. Do what you want to do.
Right.
I want a real fireplace. They've got some wood in the backyard for some fires.
Next one. Here it comes.
Yeah.
Now I'll explain this one to our listeners.
So this is not the idyllic place with the perfect view, but it's the right place to get away and think about what you're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't focus on the perfect, pretty view here. And if you step in the wrong place, the grass is kind of tall, and you know you may fall into a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
Outside, that wood kind of looks a little buckled to me. Really, all of the wood. It's just it's rustic, it's old, it's kind of beaten down and weathered. I'm not sure it's actually been inhabited recently. But if you've been hiking for 48 miles and you have nowhere, no idea where you are, you're probably going to try to figure out how to get down there, hope you don't fall in the ditch, and just sleep with a roof over your head that you hope doesn't fall on you. But you know what? It's that place where you think, hey, at least I got a roof over my head.
That, or if your family was looking for a place, and you can start seeing the potential.
Yes.
Right. If this ended up being the surrounding area, like the place you wanted to have a cabin, and it's going to probably be on the cheap.
Yes.
And
Correct.
then you start looking at
That's
your
right.
mind changes to what it could be.
Yes, this is 1 star on Airbnb, but it's not fair. It's also possibly where Tuesday's Gone was written.
Next one.
Okay. So now you're back to 4 or 5 stars, not because of the cabin, but because of the surroundings. So it's fall, and you got the green, the yellow, the red trees. You just sit there. Wind's probably blowing. It's probably feeling good. If you got some people there and you brought a football or a frisbee, you do have the rock wall in front. So there's, it's probably dammed up, preventing some water going on there. So you don't want to fall off there and break your ankle. But, great place to read a book. Great place to stretch out. The other place, there's a lot of grown-up shrubbery. This place, the grass is all mowed. You got plenty of room to walk around. You probably go for walks here. The other place, the second one, you're kind of just sitting there because, again, you don't know where to step. This place is a great place to walk through. It kind of reminds me if you had a bunch of great, beautiful trees on a golf course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably, if you're a golfer, you could probably bring your pitching wedge, and there's some fence out in the distance you could aim for as your hole. But
you got a chimney there, so you can burn your wood.
Yeah, no, there's a chimney, and you're back to just more the great outdoors, open air. You can stretch your arms here.
I used to belong to Stoneleigh Golf Club, and it was in Loudoun County, Western Loudoun County, and it was found the land was from like 1750.
Okay.
and they still had the stacked stone wall throughout the course.
Okay.
And I mean, they've had to revitalize it and stuff, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It was a Scottish architect, and they had those walls everywhere, and it was really, that brings back memories just looking at the stone wall.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, next one.
Interesting. So now we're getting a little closer to glamping to me. This feels like something someone invested in. It's still good old kind of rustic cabin, but the lighting there's light for one thing.
Yeah.
The others didn't have light. It seems more modern. There's an actual design to it. There's clearly been some mowing of grass, some landscaping going on. This is, again, I don't think this one is necessarily better than the others, but this is 4 stars on Airbnb. This is for people who want to rough it without truly roughing it.
Okay.
Okay, the second one, you're roughing it.
Okay.
The first and third one, you're roughing it, but you're more roughing it than not. But, you can make it work. This is the first one where comfort is probably on the board. There's probably a flat screen TV in there. There's probably internet access. Not as much color, not as much space. I think I see a road behind it. Mm-hmm. So, you and your friends are going off for the weekend, and you still want to check your phone or whatever, which kind of defeats the point, but whatever, it's your business. This place probably has all of that for you. You're going to feel like you roughed it, and that's because compared to where you come from, you were, but you weren't actually roughing it in the eyes of people who've actually roughed it.
I've got one more.
All right. Interesting. So you want to go be alone? What you got here, it's hard to see because the building appears to be bigger. It's larger, but it's in the middle of just a bunch of trees.
It's like a mountainside.
Yeah. What kind of trees are those? Spruce or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not an arborologist or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a bunch of grown-up trees all surrounding this one place. The whole screen is green. Mm-hmm. Just got green everywhere. You don't see a road. You don't see any dirt. You just see kind of a red house-looking deal, kind of almost like a farmhouse, but 2 stories, in the middle of a bunch of greenery that's all grown up around it. So, this is
very remote.
It's very remote. I was going to say it could be the opening scene of a horror movie.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Or it could be a place you just go to turn it off.
Yep.
and be alone. And I think the concept and the common theme here of getting outside, being around nature, slowing down, mm-hmm. Living life, not just virtually, is really important.
Yeah, and some of these, like you said, some of these are I'm going alone, or maybe I'm going with my spouse, or it's with the family, but your destination can change, right, based on the circumstance of who's going with.
Absolutely.
What's the objective? What are you trying to accomplish? All right, now so you said you hiked the South Rim?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, hold on, I got to shrink that. Maybe I got to go this way. Yeah, here we go.
Oh.
All right, here's some pictures of the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
I've just got some different shots, but I wanted you to be able to walk back in time, and right now you're thinking, oh my goodness, that was epic.
How I've missed you.
I've never been to the Grand Canyon.
You got to go. Every American's got to go to the Grand Canyon, period.
So does this shot?
Yeah. The first one really captured it. That's what it feels like when you're standing at the top.
Okay.
And you're looking out. It's unbelievable, the vastness. You just can't describe it. You can't fly over it. You can't drive by it.
Mm-hmm.
The second shot that reminds me of when I was at the bottom. So you see, I think that's the Colorado river that's going through it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went, you had the option of hiking to the bottom, and we camped out overnight by that water. And man, I know it's going to sound weird. I just remember waking up, and I remember distinctly thinking to myself, this is how you're supposed to sleep and wake up.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably was 59 degrees. I think if I go back and look at the date that we went, the other thing I take away from it, Tim and I were at the top. I think it was after we finished. And he was just sitting there staring. And Tim's a contemplative guy. And I said, what are you thinking about? What are you doing? He said, I'm just thinking about, like, where am I? What am I doing? How am I doing? And that for some reason stuck with me, because I think that we're in such a fast-paced, instant everything age. And I think that, who said that unexamined life is not worth living?
Yeah.
I think we need to examine things, and you're going to run into some pain. You're going to run into some problems. You're going to run into some challenges. Everyone has them.
Is it also when you go somewhere, here's another shot where people, I guess this is the South Rim, I think, kind of on the top, and there's a railing there to make sure you don't fall down. But is it also sometimes you have something like this that is so big and so vast, and then you realize how small you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I thought...
And that doesn't always happen until something nature, you're like, oh my goodness, I am a speck.
Yes.
In this.
And that, I think...
And am I doing enough as a speck? Or what am I doing in this grand plan?
I think what's hard about that is a lot of people feel unloved. They already feel unnoticed or uncared for. And so then you add in what you're talking about is perspective.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it makes a difference when you're loved, or when you're enjoying your work, whatever the case may be. I think it's important to have reminders that we're part of a much larger tapestry of human history.
Right.
We're not the first age.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Like in the Bible, my favorite books, they depress everyone. Like Job, for example. It was brutal. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes, I think people misunderstand the meaninglessness. It's not that it's just meaningless and we live in a nihilistic world. It's just that it's saying there are things that are meaningful and there are things that ultimately aren't. And if you keep counting on those other things that aren't to bring meaning to your life, all you'll want is more of them, because they never satisfy.
That's right.
But I think your point still stands, which is sometimes it just takes exposure to something to make us realize the context of the world we live in, instead of constructing a world where we're the center.
Right. And I believe the last one is the map.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of I drove like up through Flagstaff into southern Utah. Like Kanab is beautiful. It sounds like you were in Bryce Canyon or something, right, at some point.
Yeah, and Angel, Bright Angel, we were around there for a while.
Yeah.
I get all the sub parts mixed up, because we had our bags, and then we just started going down. And I think on the way back up, it's frustrating at the time. I don't know how it is now, but there was a way you could go up that was more sharp and it wasn't as long, and then a way that was more gradual but longer.
Yeah.
So we chose the second, but then we got stuck behind a camel tour, which is a problem.
So you had to slow your pace.
Yeah, just a bit. But maybe we needed that.
And it's been a pleasure, man.
Dude, thank you.
I was really excited to talk to you. As we've been talking, I was thinking, if I was ever you go into business with someone, you want to go into business with someone who's different, you're not the same personality and whatever, and you're very cerebral and very intellectual and smart, and you offer great observations, and you're definitely one of those that I hope all Americans can be like, where, ultimately we may differ on something, but just the nature of our discourse, you just agree to disagree, right? Or you move on because you just have respect for the person. And not that I disagreed with anything, but you have that maturity, right, or that capability to the way you express things, right? There's that view, but there's also this view. And what you're doing it's awesome for me selfishly to keep learning more about the state that I am not a native of, but this is my new town. Whether that's North Alabama or the 256 or the Tarcog or however you want to shape it and phrase it, Limestone County, I'm proud. to be transplanted here and to get to know people like you and to experience and start benefiting from what's been done to this point, and now be a part of trying to help and shape and, do what I can to contribute to all that's going on here.
Well, let me just say thank you for having me, first of all. It's humbling to be invited. I'm glad that you and your family have made Alabama home.
Yeah.
Again, I really, I think I've shown you I love our country and so much, but I can't imagine a better place to be, especially now than North Alabama and Alabama, our state. And I just want to say too, everyone who's listening to this podcast, not to just the two of us talking, but to our town, I really appreciate the level of intentionality that you bring to this. All of you out there, Troy puts work in to make this a high quality value add for all of you. And he's thinking about, how can I make this a platform that sure promotes other people and things, but it's also helpful to the listeners. And it's just a really cool thing for me to see people doing things they love, doing it with intentionality, and doing it with excellence. And that's how I think of our town, as something that is done with excellence. And so I just want to thank you for the work and the hours you're putting in that we don't see. The lighting, the cameras. We were talking about the audio earlier. All the time you spend doing research, all the time you spend putting those images together. Mm-hmm. This is how I want our children to do whatever it is they're going to do. This is the standard I want them to meet. This is closer to doing things with excellence. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being here in the 256.
I appreciate it. The one thing I need to do, people should notice my RGB lights. I have some blue lights that go out after we've been talking for about 2 hours, but I got to get some stronger batteries or plug them in. But man, I could talk to you. I still have so much that we didn't get to that we could get to, but at the same time, my focus, I don't want to just get to, here's a list of things. We just take the conversation where, we follow the conversation where it takes us.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And I got to tell you, I want to join Burning Tree. I got to play. Well, I didn't get to play, but I was over there for a tournament I sponsored, and I like that place, man. It's a good facility.
Yeah, man. Great pool.
Yeah, and I haven't been to Mallard Point. Is it Mallard Point? Mallard.
Point Mallard.
Point Mallard.
Yeah.
We want to check that. There's so many things we need to do and check out, and then just being over in Decatur, like, man, this place is awesome. We should have moved here.
Hey, we got a lot of hidden gems.
Look, that light just went out.
There it is. So I'll just say it's arts and outdoors community with a low cost of living, great pace of life, and access to all these top jobs. So give us a look. Give us a look.
He is John Joseph IV. The East Center. I've been over there. It's awesome. Great people. I love the inside. Some of the work you guys have done. Just those are little things that make a difference, right? When people walk in and notice the flooring or the walls or whatever it may be.
Working on it.
Yeah.
You're setting the standard for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Go Pandas.
Yes, sir.